Welcome to the February 19th, 2025 meeting of the Gloucester Conservation Commission. The time is just after 5:30. And as amendments to the open meeting law allow, the Conservation Commission may continue to hold meetings remotely. Adequate alternative access to the meetings is provided through the Zoom link. As always, continue to check the city calendar and updated agendas for log in and call in information for upcoming meetings. And we will start with a roll call of commissioners. Member Charpentier. Member Cook.
Here.
Member Sargent.
Here.
Member Materi.
Here.
Member Villa. And Member Jackson.
Here. Okay, welcome to the February 19th meeting of Gloucester Conservation Commission. We're going to start off with an administrative briefing. Chuck, do you have anything to say?
Don't have anything tonight. It is going to be a longer meeting, so I think we'll want to keep comments to a minimum, or at least minimize them to probably 3 minutes per commenter, so we can try to get through this meeting in somewhat reasonable time.
At least today. Yeah, I think most of the continuations are up front, so I will not go through them. That's all I have today. Okay, thank you. I would like to take just 1 minute to add an addendum to the administrative briefing and recognize publicly the service of Linda Charpentier. She has retired and she was hoping to be at this meeting but was unable to do so at the last minute. But she has been on the earliest trace of her I could find in Conservation Commission meetings was in April of 2015. So she's been here for nearly 10 years, performing diligently and providing us with wisdom and good recommendations. And we have appreciated her being a part of us. Moving on, this is the time when we will open up the meeting for public comment. Is there anybody in the public who wishes to comment on any item of Conservation Commission interest that is not, I repeat, not on the agenda tonight?
And just for the record, it looks like Member Villa has joined.
Excellent.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
An update for whatever reason. The computer decided to do it. All right, where are we?
We're in the middle of public comment. Chuck, is there anybody that wishes to comment?
We have 43 attendees, but I don't see any hands up at this time.
Okay, then I will close the public comment period and turn it over to my co-chair, Rob Gullah. I did recognize Linda, Rob.
Oh, great, thank you.
We do have a hand that just went up. I don't know.
You might as well hear it.
Sure.
Hello?
Yes, David, name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is David McLaughlin of 34 Wolf Hill Road in Gloucester, Massachusetts, of course. I'm just wondering, you asked that people make comments on something not on the agenda. I'd like to make a comment about something on the agenda. Is that allowed?
It will.
Okay. When your term comes up, when we review that proposal, you'll have an opportunity then to discuss it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'll wait till then.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we're up to, we've gone through the public comment period. Now we're moving on to minutes for review and approval.
There were no minutes for February 5th since the meeting was canceled due to lack of a quorum.
Oh, okay, so we're up to date.
We are up to date.
We are up to date. Okay, so next would be emergency certificates. We have an emergency cert for Ye Old County Road, replacement of a corroded collapsed culvert discovered during a waterline installation. William Ross representing.
Yeah, and he is in Florida, or I'm sorry, he's in Ireland at the moment, so he's not able to join. So I can pull up briefly the plan that he sent. And so it's a culvert. They're putting in the seasonal or replacing the seasonal water line and putting in a year-round water line over on Rust Island area. And this culvert, when they dug underneath it, it just kind of completely collapsed on them, and the pipe is just completely corroded. Some sections is just half of the pipe that's left, and the entire other half is missing. So they're going to replace it with the same size pipe in the same location. But I don't believe the work has started yet because of all the high tides and then all the weather kind of working against them.
So it sounds like you're feeling okay with it. Do you think since the weather isn't going to change anytime soon, should we hold off on this so we can talk to somebody? What do you think, Jim?
That's up to you. To me,
in a related question to follow up on Rob, don't they only have 30 days to get in an NOI after an EC? And when is he returning from Ireland?
they can do an NOI whenever they want, but the emergency certification is only good for 30 days.
Oh, okay. All
I
right.
issued it on the 29th, so it'd be valid until the 28th.
Okay. So is he going to be back from Ireland?
The crews are out there, so if they get a good window, that they intend to do the work.
Is somebody, so they're doing work now. Is there somebody available for the March, whatever it is, meeting?
It'll be March 5th. Yeah, it'll be after the enforcement order is closed.
Yeah.
But if they haven't gotten to the work at that point, then you'd have to figure something else out anyway. So
you want to do this on a holding pattern and see what happens, or should somebody go down there and tell them to stop or hold on and wait till we have the leader of the pack, so to speak, back?
I mean, if you guys would prefer them not to do it until they've come to the commission, I can certainly let them know.
I'm actually going to circle back to you again. I don't want to leave it if it's in an environmentally sensitive area. I think we should put an all stop play until this gentleman returns. If he's
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be shutting down the road. So, I mean, they got to get the pipe in.
I agree. I think if Chuck is okay with it and he has signed the EC, that we ought to let them continue work during their installation, but absolutely ask them to come in March 5th.
Okay.
This isn't the one that we were talking about a few weeks back, Chuck, where we approved them to do work across the way, similar to what they did on the water line over on the causeway. Is this the same group?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that makes me feel better because they did a very good job at the other project.
Yeah, they've been keeping up on the BMPs and everything, and yeah.
Okay.
Have a good plan for this, I thought. So I'm comfortable with it. But.
Okay, good. So if you're comfortable, we can do what needs to be done.
Okay, I guess if the commission's comfortable, we want to ratify the emergency certification.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson moves to ratify the emergency certification for EC 2501 at Ye Old County Road.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Thierry.
Yes.
Member Villa.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes.
Okay. Next would be up new business. Notice of intent, no DEP number for East Main Street, Lisa O'Donnell for replacement of a pile, vent, and 2 piles in coastal resource area. Lisa O'Donnell representing.
Okay, Lisa is promoting now.
Hello, Lisa.
Hi,
Name and address for the record.
I'm sorry.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Lisa O'Donnell. I am the owner of LJO Engineering LLC, and I am at 15 Island Road in Essex.
So what's going on here? We have a pier issue, a pile issue.
Yeah, this is Captain Joe's Lobster on East Main Street in Gloucester, where they run a lobster handling operation there. And this is the building that they use to transfer lobsters from boats to trucks. Or I'm not entirely sure what they do because I'm worried about the pier that they're sitting on. And there's an area inside the building, the corner that you see in the upper right-hand photograph, where a pile bent has given way. The photograph on the lower left, you can see the stringers coming down in a bit of a V to where a pile bent was failed. The floor inside has settled in that area. It's cordoned off and they're not using that area, but it is impacting their operation up there. So we have, as detailed in my drawings, a plan to take advantage of an existing concrete pad that is there, and then to drive 2 new piles outboard of the building and fish a new pile bent in under that to resupport that area of the floor. And the idea with going with piles is it's a smaller footprint than any kind of a permanent footing would be. So you can see that there's a rectangle sort of in the middle of both drawings, and that is an existing concrete pad that sits on the seafloor. We're proposing a temporary 1x6 timber to sit on the seafloor temporarily to support another bent to hold 2 headers up to hold the stringers temporarily so that they aren't further dislodged during the pile driving operation, then to drive 2 piles just beyond the footprint of the building, put a pile cap on top of them and fish a new pile cap in underneath, and then remove the temporary works.
Right.
And it's sort of a make safe operation to make sure that that floor doesn't continue to fail any further. Right now, the failure is basically the string where the pile bent was lost. The stringers have come down and the concrete slab on top of them has kind of locked it in place. But that's obviously not a structurally sound solution to anything. So the idea is to put the pile bent underneath.
Excellent. Next up, I'm going to open it up for public comment, at which time just sit back and listen to what people have comments on if they do. So with that, I'm going to open the public comment period for anyone who wishes to speak for or against the project at 95 East Main Street. May do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 the phone or email.
We currently have 51 attendees, and I'm not seeing any hands up.
Okay, seeing none, hearing none, close the public comment period. Guess we can go to roll call, commissioner roll call comments.
Member Cook?
Have we got a number for this yet?
We do not, no.
Okay, and I don't know the procedure to do that, but this sounds like it would be a candidate for an emergency cert. Can we issue an emergency cert tonight in place of the NOI until the number gets approved? Because this sounds like something that really has to get done soon.
Yeah. I mean, you could vote on the NOI and also vote to issue an emergency cert, and, you know.
Why don't you continue on roll call comments?
Yep. Member Sargent?
I think with a emergency cert, we would need the building inspector to, make an opinion. And I noticed the harbor master has made comments, and I think those should be incorporated in any plan.
Member Terry?
The NOI form, you checked the box that you were exempt from stormwater standards. Don't know what the basis is for the exemption. This is a commercial project. So I don't think there's a very involved stormwater analysis, but I still think you have to complete that. I would add a condition that you maintain debris management system during the work, a net to catch debris or a boom in the water during all the work.
Member Billis?
Nothing else from me at this time.
And Member Jeff?
I have nothing to add to previous comments.
Okay, So we're going to have to continue, not continue this, but your options are, we can do an emergency cert to kind of protect you here, but that requires you going to the building inspector first and then coming back to us. Or we can just move forward the notice of intent as is, the commissioners are open to that. Nobody jumped.
Well, if Chuck's able to issue an emergency cert, then they're able to start the work right away, right?
Yeah, we'd have to have, another official, so either building inspector or the harbor master.
Sign off.
If they would consider it an emergency, then they could, I could issue that emergency cert right away.
And then they could start the work right away once you do that.
Yep.
Yeah, so why don't we try to do that?
She would still have to have an NOI subsequent.
Yes, and then the NOI is subsequent afterwards.
I have no problem with that.
How does the applicant feel?
I would have to, as the engineer, the owner of the property isn't here. I'm not sure when they are prepared to do the work. They have to get materials and get their contractor lined up. So I don't know exactly when they do the work. There's obviously urgency to it, but the failure is kind of it's a weird stable kind of thing right now, and they're not using that area. They do want to get back there. So either I'm not sure myself the difference between the emergency cert and the NOI, so I would defer to your recommendations, I guess. Or if the emergency cert is one thing and the NOI follows, if that works too.
Certification is quicker, faster as far as getting people up and working and solving the problem. But it requires, again, city employees, it's the harbor master or the building inspector to get involved and sign off on. Whereas the notice of intent is a little more arduous, but it covers a lot more of your bases in one shot.
But she has the notice of intent. Can't she just use this?
But we still have to wait for a number for it to be official.
Right.
So I would say probably continue with the notice of intent pathway, and if things deteriorate in the meantime, and it becomes more of an emergency, then we can talk about that. You can contact me, and we can go from there.
It's an emergency in the fact that they can't use that area, but it's not an immediate danger of further failure because it's kind of reached this equilibrium point where it failed as far as it's going to go right now until we have another earthquake or who knows what, something happens. It's kind of a stable situation. So from a public safety and that point of view, I don't see a need to go out and do it tomorrow. It should be done sooner than later, but it's not posing a danger right now because they're not using that area.
Well, that probably then makes sense to just continue this for 2 weeks. I don't know if that's long or not, but that's what a continuation.
Yes, we can't. Yeah, we can't do anything with your application tonight because DEP is not assigned a number, so we can't approve it or disapprove it.
Basically telling us that you need to kind of continue, unless you see an imminent date.
So would you like to continue this to March 5th? And if things deteriorate, talk with Mr. Shade about an emergency certification? Does that make sense to you?
That certainly works.
Okay. All right. Then Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public here. Nope, forget that. Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 028 unassigned DEP number at 95 East Main Street to the Conservation Commission meeting of March 5th.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Materi.
Yes.
Member Gullah.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time and appreciate you letting me go early. Thank you.
All right, next up, let's continue business. Well, we're at notice of intent, 105 Ricochet Road, 125 LLC. They requested to continue to, it's that 3/19/2025.
Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0283006 at 105 Wingershik Road, the Conservation Commission meeting of March 19th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
Member Villa,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
Next up would be notice of intent 028-007 Road. They too are requesting a continuation to March 19th, 2000.
Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0283007 at 107 Wingershik Road to the Conservation Commission meeting of March 19th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
Member Villa,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
On, we move down to notice of intent 028-029 12 Sumner Street, Heidi Fiallo, construct a single-family house in buffer zone of coastal bank and ACEC. Dan Oppenheimer of Mill River Consulting Inc. representing.
Here we go. Commissioners, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Wonderful. Hello. So in my allotted 3 minutes, I will do a very brief presentation just to recap what we have provided to you and obviously answer any questions. I do believe we have answered all of the commissioners' questions and concerns over the previous meetings, and we have a revised submission provided into you. Are you seeing my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Oops. What happened here? Okay. Thank you. So the adjustments we made, we went back to Rimmer Environmental Consulting, asked them to update their mitigation and planting plan for this property. And specifically, we wanted to proactively make sure it was clear we're intending to do at least 2 years worth of vegetation monitoring with annual reports to the commission. We've also engineered a solution for the street basin catch the water from the street catch basin, and we've reviewed that with the DPW and gotten their endorsement and provided you a copy of their endorsement. And at Rimmer Environmental suggestion, at the rear of the property, we've also added a double layer of erosion control during construction, as well as jute mat to be placed down in the planting area due to the slope that we're dealing with. So these are the areas that were adjusted since we've last discussed this property. So in this area, the only change was the erosion control at the lower end of the property here is now a double erosion control, plus this whole area would have jute mat to stabilize the vegetation. And then the other change was the storm drain that's in the street would discharge to an infiltration area on the property. And as I mentioned, this has been reviewed and approved by the DPW. So I think this is somewhat of a unique application. We are looking to preserve and enhance more than half of the property, almost 30% of it to be a do not disturb zone. 29% will involve invasive plant removal, and 21% will involve native plantings. So you can see on all sides of this property, we are enhancing the natural characteristics of this site, including over 4-time native species planting to the rooftop impervious area. So really very brief, the standards in the state and local regulations for work in a buffer zone, which is what this is. This is a buffer zone. Projects have been met. DEP has reviewed it. They have no technical comments, and we kindly ask your consideration for issuing a order of conditions for Ms. Fiallo so she can move forward here.
Okay, thank you. First off, I'll open up for public comment. Does anybody in the public wish to speak for 12 Sumner Street? If you do, you may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of the screen, or hit *9 your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 56 attendees and one hand up. Christine.
Hi, it's Christine Baxter, 14 Sumner Street. While we appreciate the efforts made to address concerns, this project still relies on a decade-old wetland delineation from 2014 and unclear setbacks and dimensions. We oppose granting exceptions that allow work in the upland edge and placement of the septic system, leach fields, and infiltration bed within the buffer zone. We remain concerned about the extensive regrading, vegetation removal, and replanting in the upland edge. The new infiltration field is located in an area of ledge and fill, closer to both the septic system and the ACEC, raising questions about drainage, runoff control, and impacts to the resource area, especially without any mention of soil testing, infiltration capacity, or overflow plans for heavy rain. Placing it under a driveway adds further complications due to compaction from vehicle traffic and contamination from vehicle pollutants. We do not believe this project has demonstrated that it will have no adverse impact on neighboring properties or resource areas. Thank you.
Okay, Chuck, anybody else?
No other hands up at this time.
Seeing none, hearing none, to close the public comment period. Should we move on to roll call, commissioner roll call comments?
Member Cook.
I'd just like to thank Dan for all the effort that he's put into making it. It's a significant improvement over what was originally proposed. So thank you, Dan. That's it.
Member Sergeant.
Yeah, thank you for the significant revisions and changes to the plan. I'd like a 2-year monitoring for the mortality of mitigation plantings, and all dewatering must be adequately treated for being discharged. Additionally, there should be a continuing condition that there be no increase in impervious surfaces within the buffer zones to the ACEC. A prohibition on the use of herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers, as well as a prohibition on the directing of drainage to the upland edge of the ACEC by means of drainage swales or piping. Thank you.
Member Viteri.
No additional comments.
Member Bella.
I too would like to thank Ms. Gahn on making the changes. No other comments at this time.
Member Jackson.
I also appreciate the amount of work that was put into making this compliant. Thank you. Chuck, do you have any comments?
I do not.
Okay. Shall we move forward?
I think so.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public hearing.
Commissioner Cook, seconds.
We'll call Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sergeant.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
Member Bella.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Commissioner Jackson moves to approve NOI something. 0283029 at 12 Sumner Street with the aforementioned conditions, including the ones that Mr. Sargent enunciated tonight.
Commissioner Cook, seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sergeant.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
Member Bella.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time and attention on this, commissioners. Greatly
Thank-
appreciate it.
Thank you for yours.
Okay. Down the line here, we're now up to notice of intent 0282976 171 and 281R Magnolia Ave, Almag LLC, the construction 6 unit subdivision in riverfront area, buffer zone, close with water and vegetated wetland, Evan Gavendran, Rosa Environmental Representative.
Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0282976 at 171 and 281 Rear Magnolia Avenue to the Conservation Commission meeting of March 5th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook, seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sergeant.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
Member Bella.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes.
Okay. Moving down, I obviously didn't catch up with get on the lock call before you did all the but Next up is notice 0282950 R 154A Essex Avenue, Upper Bangor Pond LLC, construction of road utilities, drainage, construction, installation of dog flow, buffer zone, UVW, land subject, water body, and inland bank. So Plaza Seaside Solutions.
For the record, Commissioner Cook recuses.
All right, good evening. For the record, my name is Joel Favaza with an address of 123 Main Street here in Gloucester, and I represent Upper Banjo LLC. I don't want to jinx anything, but I think we have gotten to the end of our third-party review process. So I'll be very brief, just to refresh some of you. This is permitting associated with a cluster development over by Upper Banjo Pond that was permitted by the planning board prior to coming to you. The major issues that the Conservation Commission is looking at is one, the construction of roadway and improvements along with that within buffer zone to resource area. Two is the repair of an existing dam that actually creates the man-made Upper Banjo Pond. Three was the installation of a seasonal recreational pier at the edge of the pond. And four was issues relating to a vernal pool on the southern portion of the property. I submitted an updated plan set, I think, the end of January. We've been working with Bill Ross, the third-party reviewer, on this for months. We've gone back and forth a couple of times. We've also been in front of you several times over the past couple of years, actually, on this. And you have in your file a relatively clean review letter from Bill Ross. You'll note that the two outstanding issues that he notes in his letter are pretty minor. And my proposal tonight would be to address those with conditions. One is in addressing his outstanding water resource area concern, we added basically a pre-treatment device. It's called a Barracuda is the proprietary name. And it basically gets to 80% TSS before stormwater runoff even gets to BMP4. And in inserting that into the plans, it's a very busy plan. There were two, I think, catch basins that the piping didn't get changed to hit the Barracuda before it hit BMP4. The intention, obviously, is to make sure that every catch basin goes through the Barracuda system before it hits BMP4. And so we just request a condition that says either the piping will be redesigned so that everything goes through before going to BMP4, or a second Barracuda device will be installed if for some reason we can't get those last two catch basins piped over to the pre-treatment device. And then the second unresolved issue was related to the vernal pool, and it was just about conditions for prohibition of activity within 100 feet of the vernal pool. And that we had proposed would be part of the master HOA filing that happens. That'll be a recorded perpetual document that all 25 lots will be subject to. And so we just asked for a condition that says, prior to recording the HOA, we will submit the proposed prohibition language. And that's prohibition against use of, I think, pesticides, herbicides, lighting, and the like within 100 feet of the vernal pool. And I think also lighting outside the 100 feet, but not shining into it. So prohibition against shining light into the vernal pool, the 100 feet. And so we would just ask for a condition that would say, prior to recording the HOA, we submit to the conservation agent the proposed language to codify the prohibitions of activities within 100 feet of the vernal pool. Otherwise, we have satisfied the third-party reviewer with the updates to the stormwater management system. We, 11 months ago, had a lengthy conversation with this commission regarding conditions around snow removal and salt. And I think what we had settled on was, except for the portion of Southwest Drive, which is the new road being constructed, except for the portion of Southwest Drive that overlaps Malcolm Road, the remainder would be a low salt area, and the BMPs would all be vegetated in part with the salt tolerant species we discussed, which include cattails and that sort of thing. Basically using best practices from highway management systems that have drainage swales that are heavily vegetated and receive a tremendous amount of road salt from highway DOT plows to make sure that the vegetation survives and that the salt is attenuated so that Upper Banjo Pond does not become, you know, a saltwater pond by product of snow removal. And so with that, I thought tonight would be a smart idea, since it's a long meeting, to maybe just confirm that the commission feels we've satisfied the concerns that the commission and the third-party reviewer had. And if that's so, then I think we might be ready to push this out for one more meeting so that draft conditions could be, you know, proposed and reviewed and have a conversation about the proposed conditions. But that's just my take on it. Obviously, I want to hear from you guys, and I'll end what I'm discussing right now.
Commissioners, Chuck, want to do roll call comments?
What about public comments, Rob?
Yeah, I didn't know whether we were doing actually going for a meeting here, but yeah, that's fine.
We have 56 attendees and currently one hand up. Camille Vicente.
Camille Vicente, 158 Essex Ave. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Concern one is the limit of the outstanding resource waters in the certified vernal pool is still incorrect. In the January 17th, 2024 minutes, Agent Shade mentioned that the certified vernal pool boundaries needed to be revisited, noting ponding water outside of the flagging, and it needs to include the larger inundated area. Per the Mass GIS data website, outstanding resource water delineation does not include individual vernal pools, so the vernal pool must be added, and per standard 6, the isolated land subject of flooding must also be included, as wetlands bordering other Class B waters are also outstanding resource waters. Concern 2 is that most of the vernal pool watershed is diverted to an entirely different watershed. Will this redirection alter the vernal pool's hydraulic regime? Per the Stormwater Handbook, Volume 3, Chapter 1, Standard 3 for stormwater recharge, an evaluation is necessary to determine if redirecting the runoff will alter the vernal pool. Water budgeting using the Thornthwaite method or similar must be employed, noting specifically, the TR20 method is insufficient. Which method was used to evaluate water budget? I saw TR20 mentioned in one of the documents. The Kerrigan-Bray Street DEP appeal used a watershed area analysis to determine if the project could alter a vernal pool, citing anything more than a 7% change in water budget is significant. For Upper Banjo, the change in impervious area of a pre versus post development in the vernal pool watershed looks to be far more than 7%. What is that change in pre versus post development water budget for this project, including velocity changes, watershed area, impervious area, and volume changes? And concern 3 is that the project's proximity to the public water supply as Fernwood Lake and its tributaries are Class A waters, with the qualifiers of outstanding resource waters and public water supply per the surface water quality standards. Table 19. A Fernwood tributary runs alongside the project property as seen from the Fernwood Loop Trail. While a health department issue, it is also relevant to conservation. Why are we only now seeing these outstanding resource water delineations on these project maps? While an ORAD looks at the wetlands and their buffer zones on site, it did not delineate the offsite Class A wetlands tens of feet from the property line. The Wetlands Protection Act is explicit that compliance with stormwater standards does not relieve a discharger of the obligation to comply with federal, state, and local laws listing surface water quality standards and drinking water regulations. The latter, which states all sewer lines and appurtenances are prohibited from Zone A of our public water supply. Zone A of a Class A tributary is defined as 200 feet from the upper boundary of its bank, thus putting lots 10 through 13 and the road in proximity. This project puts our public water supply at risk as it has no filtration or emergency shutoff down gradient of the yards, sewer lines, and road. Per Mass General Law, Chapter 111, Section 160, in the interest of our public water supply, our public health, can you delineate the tributary on the neighboring city property and ensure that all regulations for surface water quality and drinking water are met as referenced in the Wetlands Protection Act? As someone who drinks city water, I would like my emergency drinking water just as clean as my everyday drinking water. Thank you.
There's a lot to take in there, Joel.
Not really.
Okay. So is there anyone else with their hand up, Chuck?
There are no other hands up at this time.
Seeing none, hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment period. Does the applicant can speak if you want?
Yeah, so again, I applaud Mrs. Century's passion for, protecting her backyard. The reality is there has been copious amounts of review on this project. You have a full stormwater report, you have soil samples, you have the project engineer certifying pre and post development runoff, both volume and the speed, cubic feet per minute, that sort of thing. That has been peer reviewed by Bill Ross. He has signed off on this. And then again, just from a pragmatic point of view, Fernwood Lake is over 400 feet away and up gradient. And so what is happening on this site from a hydrological, geological standpoint, even if it were not in compliance, which it is, but even if not, the idea or the chance that what is happening on Southwest Drive is going to make its way uphill underground to Fernwood Lake and have a consequence is unlikely. But again, that's kind of irrelevant in that we are meeting all the applicable standards. This has been certified by the project engineer and reviewed and confirmed by the third-party reviewer. Again, the only issue regarding the outstanding resource waters was that thing I spoke about earlier, and we have a condition in place or suggested to make sure that those two remaining catch basins that weren't caught the first time either get piped into that Barracuda device or get their own Barracuda device so that they hit an 80% TSS rate prior to even getting to a BMP, which would be their first chance to infiltrate partially into the groundwater.
Okay, I'm sure you know we have a big agenda. Well,
No, that's it.
flew by a 30-minute rule. Okay. Okay. Anybody want to do roll call comments, commissioners?
Yep, Member Sargent.
Thank you for the, changes to drainage, but I would not feel comfortable signing off on drainage until Bill Ross feels comfortable signing off on the stormwater drainage. And then I'd like to, review that a bit. I also note that the applicant still has not provided a detailed mitigation and planting plan for jurisdictional areas so that the commission can consider the magnitude of alterations and the significance of the project site in order to protect the interests of the Wetland Protection Act and the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance. Within that detailed mitigation and planting plan, there should be a notation that all newly planted vegetation must be native, and there would be a 2-year monitoring for mortality. Thank you.
Member McCary.
The peer review stormwater mentioned that additional BMP treatment was needed, so I think that's leaning towards an additional Barracuda system, or I don't know what you call it, an item, or I also, I'm glad you're thinking of putting the vernal pool restrictions on lighting and signage also as well into the HOA. So I think we'd like to, see that language. I like your proposal of reviewing proposed language of that and for the conditions. DEP had a comment for suggesting deed restrictions limiting the total impacts on all the lots to under 5,000 square feet. So I'd like to hear your take on that. And I would like to suggest a condition for quarterly inspections of all Barracuda system units and required cleanouts every 2 years or sooner if inspection warrants sooner cleanout.
I too would like, again, I'm not understanding why we're not seeing much. Well, it's probably not this part of the system where you're at, but the actual planting plan would be helpful in some sort of detail. And I also appreciate giving us some time to absorb this a little bit more over the next couple of weeks. So thank you for that.
Member Jackson.
My only additional comment is that any construction or excavation, for example, associated with the new Barracuda or reworking of the current system should come before you prior to work is started if it's not currently delineated on the plans, which obviously it would not be.
Anybody?
Okay, does Mr. Favazza want to respond to any of those? And if not, we'll just continue to the next meeting.
I just want to make sure I have this right. We're going to hopefully get Bill Ross to give us the thumbs up on the either additional Barracuda or piping the two missing ones in. We're going to get you a proposed planting plan, and you'd like to see the proposed HOA language now, is what I'm hearing from Mr. Viteri. And so if we're able to get you those three things for review, that would be the list of homework I have for outstanding unchecked boxes. Is that correct?
I would also include the wording from DEP regarding the total impact on the lots.
Oh, yeah. Do we know impact under 5,000 square feet relative to what? Because I read the condition, it just says deed restriction limiting total impacts of all lots to under 5,000 square feet.
Took that to mean each lot has a maximum impact of 5,000 square feet. So every lot, what is there, 20 something lots? Each one is limited to 5,000 square feet.
Yeah, but I mean, you only think you have a jurisdiction over a handful of them. We could certainly, what we had planned to do was come back or make the homeowners come back because we're not sure what their particular house footprints are actually going to be. These are all sample houses. Everyone's going to have their ability to kind of design their own. So we're trying to avoid permitting anything relating to the house lots except for the shared features of the road and that sort of thing. So I'm not sure that it would make sense to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out with these house lots, knowing that any of these house lots that are jurisdictional are going to come back to you with separate NOIs. And you could certainly, you know, address the DEP comment at that time in the ones that come to you.
Well, we're not going to be able to have a deed restriction if the house has already been deeded out and the applicant or the new owner of the house is coming in front of us for permitting.
Well, I mean, but there won't be a house, right? You're not permitting the construction of any houses. If we get an order of condition out of you for our NOI, zero jurisdictional houses can get built, right? And so all the houses you'd have jurisdiction on will need to come back before you to actually get built. And at that time, if there were lot specific restrictions the Conservation Commission wanted, you'd put the condition with the lot specific order.
Right, but it wouldn't, I mean, the house would already be deeded out, so you'd be beyond the chance where you could add a deed restriction.
Okay, so this would be, and I'll look at, obviously we have some time. So this is a deed restriction that would say alteration of no more than 5,000 square feet. So thinking 5,000 square feet of, you know, impervious or 5,000 square feet of, you know,
Impact.
Impact. Okay. So jurisdictional lots, you'd look for no more than 5,000 square feet of impact. Okay. Yeah, we'll have an answer for you. We'll kind of play the number game and see if that makes sense. If it does, then I'll see why we get in the way of it.
But you do get the idea behind it. But Mr. Viteri is saying is if the horse is out of the barn if they're already deeded to somebody else, we lose all power.
Well, I mean, you lose. Well, again, you lose no power over the houses because any house you have authority over, you have has to come back to you. And the houses you don't have authority over, you don't have authority over, right? If it's a non-jurisdictional house, it's a non-jurisdictional house. You can't lock it up with you can't condition an order, I would think, to, you know, impact non-jurisdictional properties. And again, this is also, you know, just a reminder, it's part of a cluster development. There's hundreds of thousands of square feet of open space. These lots were intentionally made small so that there'd be all this huge open space. So again, short answer, we'll look at the DEP request in more detail and see if it makes sense, then say, okay, whatever, it makes sense. And if we don't think it makes sense, we can come back with hopefully a counter that is in the spirit of what the request from DEP was.
Okay.
Does Chuck have additional comments? Okay, you want to continue to March 5th, sir?
That would be great.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0282950 160, 158 rear, and 154A Essex Avenue to the Conservation Commission meeting of March 5th, 2025.
Oh, I'll second that.
Roll call, member Shepard.
Yes.
Member Terry.
Yes.
Member Bell,
Yes.
and member Jackson.
Yes.
Okay. See you
Thank
in 2
you.
weeks. Billy, you're welcome to come back if you'd like. If you'd like. There we go. All right, down to notice of intent 02829. Oops, sorry, we're down to 1. We're at
2 High Rock.
Commissioner Cook has returned.
Excellent.
notice of intent 0283020, 2 High Rock Terrace, Peter Carboni and Susan McNulty to raise and rebuild single-family house, home and associated appearances in the dune restoration within land subject to coastal storm flowage, buffers on the coastal resource areas. Devin Taber, Lucas Environmental LLC representative.
Good evening, commission members. Devin Tabor here with Lucas Environmental. Here with me tonight, I also have attorney Joel Favaza. I think he's going to kind of lead the ship here, and then I can chime in with any other questions that the commission might have at this time.
So just to recap, when we were last before you in December, there was a request to have third-party review conducted, and we had pushed the continuance all the way out to February, hoping that the third-party review was going to be completed at this time. Unfortunately, it wasn't until the end of January, early February, that we got word that one firm, Beals and Thomas, had responded to the request, and there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect between. I went back and watched the video from our conversation in December, and what the commission had stated it was looking to have third-party review on was considerably narrower than what the Beals and Thomas proposal was. Additionally, the Beals and Thomas proposal required farming out the majority of the work to another another company that would do the actual geological stuff relating to the dune delineation. And we have some issues there because the group is Woods Hole, and Woods Hole is currently working with Devin and her team on other projects, and we're concerned there's an appearance of conflict of interest. We don't want to get hung up later if we get a favorable review by Woods Hole with someone saying, well, Woods Hole did you a solid because Devin's working with them on other projects. So we just wanted to kind of get away from that, and so we thought tonight would be a good idea to kind of reconfirm what needs the third-party review, and then see if we can get that more streamlined request out to some other third-party review parties. And so I think Devin sent out to Chuck the list, and if she wants, I'll defer to her. She can explain kind of what the review would probably look like.
Yeah, I touched base with Chuck, and I will obviously let him speak on our conversation, but I just wanted to, based upon our meeting, I went back, reviewed our virtual meeting, reviewed the minutes, and in the meeting, I did confirm what the scope would be, and it looks like Beals and Thomas came back with a lot of heavy engineering scope. They're including Woods Hole to look at coastal bank delineation, coastal dune delineation, and that's roughly about $8,000, which is a pretty high amount for a single family homeowner, and just that specific scope of service out of 5 that they're proposing. So I just wanted to clarify with the commission that, one, we're looking for the third-party reviewer to review the primary dune delineation and the project's compliance with the Wetlands Protection Act and the city ordinance, and look at the performance standards for work within coastal dune. I think a lot of questions that were asked during the meeting got kind of lumped into the scope, and I think obviously we're looking at the design as a whole to see, where the resulting floodplain is, the VE zone location, et cetera. I just want to make sure that the third-party reviewers aren't coming back with proposals that are above and beyond what is needed here. So that's just what I wanted to clarify.
Okay, Bob, anything else to add?
No,
Open it
no.
up. Okay, I'll open it up for public comment. There it is. Or if you want to talk more about it. Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I can't hear you very well.
I gotta get, believe it or not, I've never been accused of talking too soft. That being said, yeah, so we're going to move this to public comment period.
Okay.
So anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against the project at 2 High Rock Terrace may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 with your phone or any bell button.
We currently have 56 attendees and there are no hands up.
Here, none, close public comment period. Why don't we do additional roll call comments?
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Sargent,
My concerns were, on the dunes, the coastal dunes, the primary dune, and the performance standards for all of those. Those were my, concerns.
Member Terry,
I don't have any additional comment.
Member Bella,
My concern is human work with these facades. Or lack of.
couldn't quite hear you there.
Oh, sorry, it must be my computer. I'm good. No, nothing else for me.
Okay. Member Jackson,
One of the questions that we had wanted covered was the question not only of the dune delineations, but also walking over the dune versus walking through the dune versus walking over the dune as we usually require. And I noticed that when Devin revised the language, she took out that part of the dune. She just included dune restoration, which in a broad sense might be able to include that, but I just wanted understood. I don't think I have any additional questions at this point. Would they object to using Beals and Thomas if Beals and Thomas could find somebody other than Woods Hole to be involved in the delineation?
Well, I guess my kind of begs the question, isn't there a shop that can just do it without farming out the big chunk of it, right? Why can't why not go straight to someone who says, yeah, I can review the delineation and compare it against the performance standards, right? Why have a broker?
I was thinking it might be a little faster for you.
Do we know, I mean, how many firms received the request? Has anyone else since January 31st responded late?
I have not received any other proposals, but I've reached out to 5 other groups at this point and working on it.
Chuck, sorry, did you, or do we have in the request did you include like a deadline, for instance, the next March hearing or anything of that nature, so that way we can kind of give them, a hard, maybe they'll expedite it a little bit, because I know when we get in peer reviews, a lot of the agents will be like, we'll need it by, so and so date.
Well, when we started this, it was right before the holidays, as you know, and so a lot of people were not in the office for quite a bit of that time. So I did not do it at that time, but
okay,
I really let people know that there's a desire to have this done quickly.
I'm sorry, what was that?
So I can certainly include that there's a desire to have this done quickly.
Yeah, I think that's just obviously, and I appreciate the commission's concern for that. I don't know, we'll probably defer to like Joel. I don't know if we want to talk to the client and see if we can give them, you know, another 2 weeks and then we come back. And if Beals and Thomas is the only option, Woods Hole needs to be, you know, removed from their end. I don't know who else they would engage with if no one else is replying back to the initial proposal.
Yeah, I think we can certainly offline chat with the client, and then I can even just, you know, update Chuck via email saying, hey, listen, you know, if you don't have anything by date X, then, you know, Beals and Thomas it is, so long as we can remove that potential conflict issue. Because again, we just don't want to get hit with any sort of accusation that, you know, we had an inside man doing the work.
Okay. Could I just add 2 other comments? Rob, did we open this up for public comment?
We did.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Secondly, the other item that we had talked about being covered is the continuing problem of the planting in the right of way. Chuck, you had a conversation with Greg Catamatori?
Yeah, so I guess he was wondering if there was some language in the deed or something in writing that showed that they have that the owner has the rights to the center line of that private road there, and that there are no other parties that would have you know, potential rights within that portion.
And you never heard from Suzanne Egan?
I haven't heard back from her yet, no.
Okay.
You guys have my memo in the file, correct?
Should be.
Okay. I'm not sure. Did Greg get a chance to read that? Because again, without the long meeting, the real short answer is the presumption is that if you own along a private, you have until the center line, unless something in the title change shows that that was deeded elsewhere or was reserved for the original developer. And in my memo, I stated, you know, we've confirmed that there is nothing in the title chain that says anybody but Mr. Carbone owns to the center line along his frontage, which would be the presumption nonetheless. And then again, the rights we talked about as far as altering are again just long standing law in Massachusetts that the alteration you do is allowable so long as it does not unreasonably interfere with the right holders of others to pass over it, which is why the limit of our planting, and at this point it's been reduced to just the dune restoration point, kind of next to and seaward of the building, is already not passable and is also not even pragmatically passable. We reverted back to just leaving the lawn that's there alone, which I think is a shame, but that's, you know, if you want less dune restoration, we can do less dune restoration. And the dune restoration we're proposing now was just to start at the building, where even if someone wanted to walk along the right of way across the property to get to the beach, this is the point at which they have to go left and have to go down that path that exists at the end of Twilight. And so there'd be no need to ever walk past this point within the layout, because there's already dune on the left and building on the right and dune in the front. So that's the only portion now of the right of way we're looking to, you know, get permission to do dune restoration. The remainder of the lot that's in the right of way, we're saying, okay, you know, it's grass now, we'll leave it grass. And if people want to walk on it, they can walk on it.
Well, yeah, I've had way too many dealings with land court to be entirely convinced by your arguments, but sadly, but I will go with the rest of the commission on this with high doubts, but I will.
All right, where do we land here? Such a long conversation.
Oh, I think at this point we're
continuing.
Yeah, are we continuing for one more?
We need to continue for a month at this point, because, you know, and we'll commit to getting back to Chuck next week with, you know, a decision as to whether Beals and Thomas, you know, minus Woods Hole works, or whether we want to wait until someone else, you know, nibbles at the bait that Chuck's cast into the water for.
Too long, my friend, too long. All right. Anything-
Okay, Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0283020 at 2 High Rock Terrace to the Conservation Commission meeting of March 19th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Materi,
Yes.
Member Gullah,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes,
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
thanks.
We're down to notice of intent. 0283022 Kirk Road, Greg Souza to raise, reconstruct building, existing home installation of pool and relocation of existing pier and riverfront area in buffer zone coastal resource areas. John Judd Gateway Consultants Inc. represents.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the commission, for the record, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants, representing Greg Souza, who is here tonight on the call. I believe this is for a continued item. If you'd like, I can bring it up. If you can see that, or I can, Chuck, I'm not sure if you want to allow me to share. I can. Thank you.
Yeah, we got a clock on this tonight. We just got so much to go through, so we have a 3-minute. You can keep it tight.
Yep, I just wanted to bring everyone up to speed on the. Sorry, I'm going to have Chuck bring his copy up. Let me see if I may have it here. Okay. See if I can get this. Not at my fingertips, Chuck. If you can bring up the copy that I think I sent over today, if you have it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. This is just a recap of where we are with respect to Mr. Souza's house reconstruction and pier relocation. As was described last summer, we've been working with the Zoning Board of Appeals. We did receive a variance to allow for the greater than 10%. I believe this is the first one in the city to go through the process. This is a rebuild, you may recall, on piers to be reconstructed in the footprint as shown on the plan at 3 Kirk Road. We do provide 200% mitigation area. We do for the riverfront area here that's shown, and this project does include the relocation and extension of a pier in the as shown on the right-hand side of the lot. There was some comments from DMF after the review was completed last month, and we have addressed those. I understand that the plan just came in today, but we'd like to get any comments that you might have before we continue the item to get the final okay from DMF and the Shellfish, if that's possible, just to keep the ball moving. Thank you.
Okay, then with that, I'll open up for public comment. Anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against the project at 3 Kirk Road may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of the screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 51 attendees, and there are currently no hands up.
Seeing none, hearing none, a closed public comment period. So we used to do commissioner roll call comments, Joe.
Yep, Member Cook,
No comments at this time.
Member Sergeant,
It's noted that DMF and the Shellfish Department want additional information for commenting, and I think that's important. And I note that a Chapter 91 will need to be amended if this project is approved. And I'm wondering, is the existing pier proposed to be removed, or is it going to remain in place? And if it's proposed to be removed, what's the planning process and how is that going to happen? And how is the pier proposed to be constructed, by land or by barge? And it appears there may be an opportunity for salt marsh restoration, and I'm wondering if that's been explored. The float seems to be very close to the property line, The Army Corps of Engineers recommends a minimum distance of 25 feet, ensuring adequate space for boat maneuvering and access. And has the neighbor been approached on this issue? All pier and floating dock materials must not contain a marine biocide. The floating dock should be equipped with standoffs to be DMF standards, and the floating dock must be anchored by helical anchors to minimize impacts. The float must be removed seasonally and may not be stored on the marsh, and the pool must not be allowed to discharge onto the marsh or the shellfish flats. And all dewatering must be adequately treated before being discharged, and there should be a 2-year monitoring for the mortality of mitigation plantings. Thank you.
I think it's a great opportunity for salt marsh restoration. I'm just going to echo that point as well.
Go.
Nothing else at this time.
Member Jackson.
I agree with all the previous comments. They said them better than I would. And I also, at one point, the shellfish, I believe, mentioned that changing the angle of the pier would cover marsh grass, more marsh grass, which is currently in poor shape now, and that again, no restoration had been noted. So I don't know whether that got addressed or not, in addition to the other comments.
Yeah, I think that's everything.
Is that it, Mr. Chairman? Any other comments?
I just want to point out that the stormwater drain in front of the house empties in the back of the house. So for the dewatering of the pool, I think we want to also include that the pool should not be drained into the storm drain, because essentially it's going to end up out in the marsh anyway. So.
Okay, so it looks like, a lot of these comments were addressed already. They were already brought up by DMF in the plan that was submitted today, albeit, after the submittal date requirement. So that should be in your will be in your portal to review. But as far as the standoffs that Mr. Sargent has requested, that's been incorporated in the plan. DMF also asked that the float be stored in upland areas, and that's agreeable as well. So there were several of those comments from DMF that sort of mirrored what Mr. Sargent had said. As far as the existing piers, they would be cut right at grade, because they're existing timber, 12-inch diameter, and those would be cut right to grade unless the board decides they want them completely extracted. All work would be done through a pump truck that would be set up in the yard area, and the pump would be directing the concrete into hand dug sonotubes that would be as shown on the plan. The pool is proposed to be salt water, but that is acceptable to have that water, should it be needed to be drawn down to be not discharged into the catch basin or into the coastal area. And the salt wash restoration, that's not a problem. That is something that the applicant is willing to do. We did realign and reconfigured the proposed pier to be an acceptable width to meet DMF and CZM requirements of the 1.5 to 1 ratio for the height standoff. But additional replication or mitigation of the salt marsh is certainly acceptable. We did survey locate the edge of the grass there now on the marsh, and that's shown on the latest plans, but that can be expanded through additional planting of that same species. And I think that was it. If there was any others I can address.
So does that difference in marsh delineation, has that been resolved then? When you said you'd
Yeah, what's shown on the plan is accurate. There was some aerials that may have shown something different in the past, but we were out there in October. We survey located what was there. But there is, I think, a substrate that would accept additional plantings, and the applicant is okay with that. So if there's a need to do that, we do meet the 200% mitigation, but certainly anything in the riverfront on the marsh area, we're open to expanding that existing salt marsh grass area.
Okay, thank you.
I think that restoration would count for 1-to-1 under the riverfront analysis. I'd
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
prefer that the existing piers be totally removed and not just cut down to grade if this is going to be an area where salt marsh and potentially shellfish are going to be propagating.
You'd like to see the 12-inch piers removed from the substrate?
Correct.
Okay.
Chuck, my concern about that is the disturbance of the land under the ocean. I don't know enough about that to make a comment really, other than the question.
I think I'd be more concerned if it was in the harbor. I mean, less concerned if it was in the harbor. River.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, if that whole area is going to be restored, I just feel like the work to remove it is temporary, and it all could be part of the restoration project.
Okay.
I agree.
Fine.
Okay. Anything else? Gentlemen, assuming we're continuing.
If we could, I suspect that's what Chuck would prefer, to get a clean letter from DMF, if that is the case.
You want to
Can we-
continue to the 5th?
Yes, please.
Rob, were you going to say something?
Nope.
Okay.
Good.
Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0283022 at 3 Kirk Road to the Conservation Commission meeting of March 5th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Bella.
Yeah.
And Member Jackson.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Couple weeks. Okay, moving on down the road, we have a minor modification, 0282719, 7R Wingasheek Road in Davis, to abandon or replace existing septic system with upgraded replacement tank and coastal dune, and then the vendor of the corrosion environmental purposes.
Commissioner Jackson moves to continue minor modification 0282719 at 87 Rear Wingasheek Road to the Conservation Commission meeting of March 5th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Bella,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
Okay. We're now into new business. First up is RDA 1820, 20 Hart Street, Anthony Seo, for expansion of a driveway and land subject to coastal storm flowage, buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. That's it. The gentleman here, Anthony.
Yeah, him listed. I don't know if it's quite a few people here. I guess, Anthony, if you're here, if you could raise your hand so I can find you on the list here. I'm not seeing him.
All right, we want to table in and see if we have time to get back down the road. Or
I don't know. We still have quite a list ahead of us, so.
think we'll lose them otherwise. I don't. What would you like us to do at this point? Check, move ahead, or?
It's up to you guys. I mean.
Yeah, I would just, obviously, if you're not seeing them there, I know it's a big list. Don't know if this, how do you pronounce his name, Chuck?
Anthony Dieso.
Mr. Dieso is out in the list. You hear us? We're waiting to get on. Please let us know. We're going to table you to the back of the meeting. Okay, so let's just move ahead then. So next is RDA 1822, private roadways, Wolf Hill Road, Wolf Hill Way, Trennell Cove Road, Glenmere Avenue, Glenmere Way, Armstrong Way, Ferry Street, and Marsh Street. Installation of 4,335 feet of gas main relays and 1,345 feet of new gas mains in coastal bank and subject to coastal storm flowage, riverfront area, buffer zones inland coastal resource areas. And I don't want Kaylin Honowitz representing. How did I do?
Almost got it. Kellen Kontowitz from VHB, and here on behalf of Boston Gas tonight. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick to show you the map of the project area. I'll go quick with the amount of others. Can everyone see that okay?
Yep.
Great. So this is a proposed gas main relay in the Wolf Hill neighborhood of Gloucester. It's along Trennell Cove Road and then a few other associated roadways here. So as mentioned, it's a little over 4,000 square feet, or linear feet, sorry, of gas main relay, which is essentially a replacement, 1-for-1, 2 to 4 inch gas pipe, and then a little over 1,000 of new proposed pipe. So the new proposed is partially within Wolf Hill Way, Wolf Hill Road, and then Marsh Street on your eastern side here. And that's essentially to connect the gas system to the eastern portion of this area coming from, I believe it's Perry Hill Road from the north. So resource areas in the vicinity, we do have Coastal Bank and Salt Marsh. We are not proposing any impacts to Coastal Bank or Salt Marsh. I apologize if that was misstated in the application. I just noticed in the agenda. And then temporary impacts are proposed to land subject coastal storm flowage. You can see in the 100-year floodplain, that is our land subject coastal storm flowage part on Trennell Cove Road, and then also on Marsh Street up here. And then buffer zone to BVW is in the bright green. And then riverfront area is in kind of our darker blue line. And so work includes essentially all within roadway surface, saw cutting a 2 to 3 foot section and digging 3 to 4 feet down, installing gas pipe, abandoning the other gas pipe in place so we limit any disturbances from trying to tear that out, and then covering the roadway surface and repaving afterwards. So materials temporarily side-casted, only the amount that can be done in a day is done, and then covered with a road plate and continued the next day. So no material stored on or sediment stored on site. It's only the work that can be conducted during the day. And there are mitigation measures and BMPs proposed for this work. That includes temporary stabilization, pavement sweeping, dust control, catch basin inlet protection, dewatering if groundwater is encountered, soil stockpiles if they are needed in any cases surrounded by erosion and sediment controls, and then equipment storage outside of resource areas and buffer zones. And so regulatory wise, the replacement work is considered maintenance under the Wetlands Protection Act and Gloucester Ordinance. And work within buffer zone is considered a minor activity under the Wetlands Protection Act. And so essentially we're just seeking approval from the Gloucester Conservation Commission for work within land subject to coastal storm flowage, kind of in Marsh Street, and then in the vicinity to buffer zone and riverfront area along Wolf Hill Road. So happy to answer any questions. I know there might be a butter who might have a question as well. So happy to answer any questions the commission might have.
Okay, first up, I will open it for public comment. Anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against this project, do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 49 attendees and there's several hands up. The first is Tony Gross.
Yeah, hello. My name's Tony Gross. I live at 18 Nashua Avenue. City councilor in Gloucester, and I've worked with this neighborhood for a couple of years now on doing a paving project that we are fully funded now for. It's a betterment project, and a major concern is the timing. If we could get an answer on that, that would be very good, because we were ready to go when spring came to pave this road. And also if there's any cost sharing, because you won't have to do curb to curb paving either. Those are my two major questions. And I would also like to ask the commission to take into consideration that there is it's time sensitive here as far as getting the paving done in this next paving season, that we're all ready to go. And we've been quoted the price, and all of the abutters on this property are on these roads which is Wolf Hill Road, Tunnel Cove Road, Glenmere Avenue. Not sure if Glenmere Way's in it. Armstrong Way, Ferry Street, and Marsh Street are not in the paving, but those other ones off of Wolf Hill and the accessory streets are in this project. So if you could give us an idea on timeline and if there's any cost sharing that National Grid would do with us, that would be great to hear. Thank you.
Second hand up is David McLaughlin.
Hello, and thank you very much. And I think thank Councilor Gross for being here and making his comments. I echo what he says. You know, we've had a years-long effort to get city approval to do the paving of the roads, 4 of which are on your project: Wolf Hill Way, Wolf Hill Road, Tunnel Cove Road, and Glenmere. And it just seems to make sense to me that the utility work be done before we spend all of our money that we're going to pay for to repave all the roads on the hill. It'd make a much better project. It makes some of the problems that we're encountering and needing to repave the road came from opening the road for the sewer. So the neighbors feel and in discussions for getting approval of the neighborhood to get the city to approve it, a lot of the comments were relating to opening the road after it's built. So it just seems to make sense to me, to the extent that you can impact these things, to do the utility project on Wolf Hill before we get to pave our roads. Thank you for hearing me, and thanks for what you do for the city.
Thank you.
Next hand up is Marianne Connors.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, I think they both covered what our concerns are. I'm also president of the Wolf Hill Association. We worked a long time on getting these roads paved, getting everybody to sign on. So we want to do it, you know, the best way we possibly can. And our concern is that, again, we get the gas work done before our paving. And the question of how long do you expect the gas work to take? Do we know that? Do we know an answer to that yet?
Is that it, Mary? Oh,
yes.
The next hand up is Jess.
Okay, it'd be nice if some of this stuff related to conservation issues. So we're a little off topic. Jess, name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Jess Lindley. I live at 28 Wolf Hill Road, and I just, I echo what my neighbors are saying, and I guess it's appearing before your committee, so I guess it does somehow, it does affect conservation because it is appearing before your committee, so thank you.
Thank you.
And there are no other hands up at this time.
Okay, hearing and seeing none, close the public comment period. Kaylin, I guess this is really your show. They're basically looking for timetables. So I don't know if you can help them out at this point or.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate everyone's comments. Totally understand that the request for gas works occurred before paving. I know I'm just managing this project on the environmental side. I believe this will be conducted in the 2025 construction season. So in the upcoming months, I don't have an exact timeline or schedule for you, but I can certainly reach out to the folks at Boston Gas and provide that to Chuck at the town to share with the neighborhood. I think that, we should have a good idea of when that will occur. So I can certainly ask and try to track that down. I think cost sharing, I also not positive on that front, but I can also inquire about that.
So Boston Gas is the contact though for them?
It's Boston Gas and essentially owned and operated by National Grid. So.
All right, thank you for that information. commissioners, so I guess we've heard, I don't know if we need, if anyone else have any other comments, Caitlin?
Do a roll call, Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Sargent,
I'm wondering if there's going to be any blasting and how are you going to accomplish covered crossings? We've had a few issues with covered crossings lately. Thank you.
No comments.
Yeah, I'd like to hear on the culverts as well.
Jackson.
Yeah, refresh me, Chuck, wasn't there an area of concern along Channel Cove Road in the marsh?
Yeah, that's a question I had as well. Let's see. According to the plans, it looked like, at least on the plans, it looked like the pipe was going to go not within the roadway, but adjacent to it at that location. And then, at this location, it's right up against the salt marsh here. So that would kind of put that pipe in the, so, if that's actually happening within the roadway, I wouldn't have any concerns there. I just want to make sure that that's the plan there.
Dropped off for a minute, Chuck.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the plan was to put the gas line in the paved roadway and not adjacent to it in the marsh.
All right, any other questions for Caitlin? If not, then I'll jump at once. Okay, so why don't we, are we gonna move to continue, or do we want to, what are you looking for, Caitlin?
Could we have his response to that concern about the marsh?
No, absolutely. Apologies. Along Channel Cove Road, I know a lot of these engineer plans there, they can be approximate. I can certainly double check on this area just to verify, because obviously that is a concern if it were to stretch off the roadway and into the marsh. My understanding is everything is within roadway, but that's something I can certainly confirm. And as far as blasting and then the culvert crossings, blasting's not anticipated unless any shallow ledge or bedrock's encountered. And even that, I believe it's not standard procedure to conduct any blasting. They typically find a workaround just within the area of paving. And as far as culverts, typically culvert crossings are deep enough, and the 3 to 4 feet that the gas mains are, or the gas pipes are shallower, or they can move a little shallower to go over the culvert crossing. So that's standard procedure with those crossings.
Does that answer your question, Dave? Or
Yes, it does. That's fine.
okay. Anything else, gentlemen?
Well, how about if we were to continue this for, say, one meeting or two meetings to give them a chance to firm up the date, or to get a firmer date, then they come back and we can use this as a public forum also to get that information out to the people. I mean, I don't think you're going to start in the next couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, not the plan. I'm certainly okay with that if that's how the commission would like to proceed.
Yeah, I think that's a wise approach.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson moves to continue RDA 1822 for private roadways, Wolf Hill Road, Wolf Hill Way, Trail Cove Road, Glenmere Avenue, Glenmere Way, Armstrong Way, Ferry Street, and Marsh Street to the Conservation Commission meeting of March 5th.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Villa,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
Super. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, good night. Okay, next up. Do you see that last RDA out there, Hart Street, Anthony Sayo?
I do not. Nope.
Back, but I have a feeling you might not be on. Okay, notice of intent 028-3037, 5 New Pine Lane, Salvatore and Sharon Berloni for a garage construction to an existing dwelling riverfront area in buffer zone, the bordering vegetated wetland. John Judd, Gateway Consultants, Inc., representative.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants, representing the applicant at 5 Lupine Lane. This is an application for a single car garage addition over it's largely a paved area now in the Lupine Lane Riverdale Place subdivision. And let me see if I can pull that up again, or if Chuck, if you have that at your fingertips, I'm not sure. Is that the best way to do that? You can find.
I got it here, Joe.
You do have it. Okay. Okay, thank you. So it's a fairly large lot. This is the lot as you drive down Lupine Lane, the cul-de-sac across from Captain Hook's. This is, for the most part, it's a large parcel. This was reserved for the drainage associated with the subdivision. So this house here is actually accessed through other lots closer to the road, and it's again a fairly good sized lot that it butts the mill pond, and the detention basin here is associated with the drainage from the roadway. So they're proposing this garage here with an ADU or an expansion above it for the family to live in. You can see the paved area extends about halfway into the proposed garage, and there's beyond that, outside of the impervious area, there's about 300 square feet of it's lawn area. There's some crushed stone against the building walkways, so we're looking at about 300 additional square feet of impervious area. You can see behind the building we're proposing 600 square feet down in the buffer zone closer to the resource area of native plantings to achieve the 200%. And that's really the extent of it. We're showing erosion control and behind the proposed garage, and it's fairly level area, so there's no grading associated with this other than excavating for the footings for the frost wall associated with the garage slab. I can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, first off, I'll open it up to public comment. Anyone who wishes to speak for or against the project at 5 Lupine Lane may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of the screen, or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 42 attendees, and there are no hands up.
Seeing none, hearing none, I close the public comment period. Next up would be roll call commissioner comment.
Member Cook.
No comments.
Member Sargent.
Yeah, I know previously this was not considered riverfront, but since then, the removal of the tidal gate at Washington Street might have changed the impounded mill pond to be more tidally influenced, and I'm wondering if it's now a riverfront area. And I note that there was a previous NOI for the construction of the house, and I'm not sure it ever obtained a COC. And I'm wondering if that work was ever performed. It appears that the area of the proposed mitigation is in the same area that was conditioned in the earlier NOI. Thank you.
Member Thierry.
I have one question. The proposed new garage roof drain, does that tie into the existing roof drain?
Member Gullah.
This is yes, but I know you want to continue with the comments.
Member Gullah.
That at this time.
And Member Jackson.
I echo Mr. Sargent's question about whether it's riverfront or not. It looks to be very clearly on Mill Pond, but I think, Chuck, you noted that the area does not meet the definition of a pond, which seems to me that that would then make it river. Excuse me. And there's no mitigation proposed that I saw. So I think that's it.
Is that everyone? Bill, Bill said.
Did Chuck have any comments?
Nothing.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Judge, you want to comment about comments?
Sure. Peters was fairly simple. There's an existing 4-inch drain that goes into the detention basin. So that was all a part of the original design. And that is an existing subsurface roof drain that would be connected into, it would just be rerouted around the proposed garage. Regarding and Joe, we had the mitigation that was proposed. There's quite a bit of area that's meadow behind this house, and we show it on the plan as 600 square feet. So we meet the standard for 200% of the additional degraded area. Thanks, Chuck. He's bringing it up now. So you can see toward the back, that clouded area. That's where we have the 200% closer to the resource area.
Okay,
Dave,
does that include the addition of the garage as additional area?
Yeah. So that the addition, so we're looking at beyond the existing pave, which is going to be replaced by the garage, we have about 300 square feet of non-pervious area. So we figured closer to the resource area would be better in terms of mitigation planting. As far as Dave's comments, I am not, well, I don't recall that NOI, if that was done by us for this house that's shown there. And I'm not sure whether that was actually released through a COC from the landowner, from the homeowner, but I suspect it would have been because of the clear title. I'm not sure if you've researched that on the registry of Chuck. You have some more information on that, but I'm not it doesn't come to mind as far as that NOI, but we can look into that. But there's plenty of opportunity to do additional mitigation, but I'm just not familiar with that.
Okay. Doc, anything else to add to this?
There's the question about the riverfront area.
Oh, yeah, the riverfront, again, whether it is considered, so it's not on the GIS maps. I'm not disputing the riverine characteristics or the fact that the flood gate is now perpetually left open, but it was always referred to growing up as Mill Pond. It was always an impoundment, but I understand in recent years it's been it probably has more riverine characteristics, but it's not mapped as a river front area on the GIS and under the state mass mapper. But and it was not, as you know, considered when we designed this 20 years ago. This roadway was not considered riverfront, but I know things change due to that mechanical sluice that has been left open for some time now. So again, it's a redevelopment. We are proposing 200%. I'm not sure if things would change or anything else we can do, but we'd be happy to accommodate the board.
Okay. So what, are you looking for an approval? You're looking for a continuation? What are you looking for?
We're looking for an approval, based on, what we're presenting.
Why don't we check? I don't know if Commissioner is ready to work that, but we can do another roll call, talk, see where people land.
All right, Member Cook.
Okay.
Bill.
Yeah. I'm just thinking that maybe we were gonna wait to have Chuck find out about a COC.
Yeah, I agree. So if you wouldn't mind, we're probably going to want to push this one more meeting. Mr. Judd, is that okay?
Sure, if that's what we need to do to clear up the paperwork on it. That's not a problem.
Yeah, there's not a lot here, but it's important stuff. So
yep,
take another couple weeks. That'd be helpful.
Yep, we can look into that as well. Chuck may have some information that I don't, but I can check the registry of deeds to see what was on file.
Is there a determination from the commission on whether or not this would be considered riverfront?
Well, even if it is riverfront, if he's putting it over the degraded area, then it's redevelopment. And I'm looking at the standards, and he's got the mitigation, so he's improving. Stormwater taken care of. It's not closer to the river.
Yeah, it's just more of an issue of the delineation being valid for 3 years. So
Yeah.
things were proposed based on that delineation.
I suppose to be conservative, we probably should continue at riverfront.
Well, if we're continuing anyway, can we get riverfront put on the plans and have an analysis done of the impacts for the redevelopment standards?
We could do that. Yeah, that's not a problem. We'll show the 200-foot riparian from the mean high water of the Mill Pond area. So are we referring to that now as Mill River over there?
Who knows? Who knows? But it's not a pond, apparently. So
Not the Gulf of America or any.
Delineations are done every 3 years because things change.
All right.
yeah.
Okay, no problem. We'll change that. Yeah.
Let's move to continue.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0283037 at 5 Lupine Lane to the Conservation Commission meeting of March 5th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
We'll call Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Ratteri,
Yes.
Member Gullett.
Yeah.
Member Jackson.
Yes.
Thank you.
You
Have a good night.
want to do a 5-minute recess, or is everybody willing to push through?
I'm okay.
Keep moving. Next up, notice of intent 0283034, 68 Riverview Road, Essex by the River LLC, construction complex, associated utilities in riverfront area and buffer zone of coastal bank, Gulf Baza, Legal Seafood Solutions, BC representative. Chuck, don't let me forget that gentleman, Anthony. At the end of the meeting, then.
Hi,
Name and address for the record, please.
Joel Favaza. I'm an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, with an address of 123 Main Street. Tonight, on behalf of Essex by the River LLC, at 68 Riverview Road. So, again, I do my best to move swiftly and real quickly. I want to just go through the project site. We'll talk about what we're doing. So this is Riverview Road. As you can see, it's a fully developed neighborhood. The square in green is the lot we're looking to develop. I just dropped my little guy right here on Riverview Road. You come down, you can see this road's no stranger to construction. This is construction that was happening in 2019, literally on the edge of the marsh. Come on down the road some more. You got more construction coming down the road some more. You've got these houses on the left-hand side of the road that are between the road, between the river and the road. And then our property, as you come down further and further, is located over here in this uncleared lot. I think you actually have, is this what we got here? This is, I think, before you later, 79, so 81 must be this way. Anyway, this is the area, right? We're in a developed riverfront. We've got houses on the left side of the road, and we're just this wooded lot here on the right side of the road. Let me just get out of that for a second, and we'll pull into a quick little presentation and hopefully move this right along. Oh, hold on. This thing's gotta move faster before you kick me out. Sorry, guys. Slideshow from the beginning. Let's try this one more time. Sorry about the delay here. I just did not have myself queued up like I thought I did. All right, here we go. We've got. Now we're in business. So the background, we are, I said, a vacant lot. We're about 10,000 square feet. We front on the paved road, and we're surrounded by developed lots on all sides. So there are no ACECs, no estimated priority rare species habitats, no vernal pools, no RWs. This is buffer zone only, and even then barely, and riverfront only. And it's in the back half of the riverfront. And this is the GIS data showing the buffer zone to the riverfront. So sorry, to the coastal bank. So here's what we got going on. Everything in gray is beyond both the 100-foot buffer zone and the 200-foot riparian zone. The blue shows the limits of the 100-foot buffer to the coastal bank. The green shows the outer edge of the 200-foot riparian zone. And again, this is all on the opposite side of a paved road and house lots that all sit between this lot and the Annisquam River. So here's what we're looking to do. Everything that is shown in orange, that is structure being constructed in the riverfront. Again, that orange line at the end of the orange shading is the very outer limit of the riverfront zone. So the structure itself is, within the last 1 to 15 feet of the riverfront area. Purple, that is impact within the riverfront area, but no structures, with the exception of the stone wall, which is in yellow on the left-hand side. So we'll talk about the placement in a second. Quick housekeeping, there was a written response from DEP that you probably saw from February 11th. The first one was a comment about an alternatives analysis. I went back and checked, and the NOI we submitted did have an alternatives analysis. It spoke about the placement of the structure. It spoke about, I actually spoke in two directions. One, it talked about the presumption of significance, and then secondly, it talked about if it is significant, the alternative analysis performed. And comment 2 was a request to revise the plans to show the top of the coastal bank, and we have no problem doing that. We're happy to just submit a supplemental plan set that shows the coastal bank delineation. It's just, basically, it's so far away that it's just not shown on the plans that we've been submitting. So again, here is the site plan. This one is the closest part. You can see the mean high water line toward the edge. So coastal bank is going to be near there. We can get that laid out. And this just shows, the entirety of what we're looking to do. Here's our existing conditions. We went back and we noted the kind of, larger trees that'll be impacted as part of this. As you can see, there's 9 good-sized trees that will have to come down as part of the work. And we're willing to take conditions to replace those when we're all said and done. Here's the grading plan. As you can see, everything's being graded into drainage areas and basically, trying to improve the drainage situation we have on the property. Here's the utility plan. This actually shows you a lot of the stormwater facilities we're proposing. And I will point out that the driveway is being proposed as permeable pavers. We'd also, I know sometimes people are concerned about permeable pavers because of the maintenance requirements. So if the commission instead preferred cobbles or other sort of pavers with, the appropriate width of stone dust or similar between them, whatever we need to do to make sure that it qualifies as impervious, we're okay with that. We're not married to the permeable pavers, but that was just the first suggestion we had. And so the 2 things we need you to look at are the performance standards for buffer zone work. And so the driveway can be considered accessory to residential structures. So for instance, if we're building a patio or a deck, it would count. Driveways just aren't specifically mentioned in them. And again, it's planned to be permeable, so even if it's not an accessory use, it's still going to be a permeable alteration inside the buffer zone. The utility lines are considered minor activity, and honestly, most of the work is just getting the utilities back out to the street. And so you have the option of saying, hey, listen, we don't think we actually need to condition these minor activities. If you do think you need to condition these minor activities, you can do so through an order of conditions. We've applied for everything just so it gives you the leeway to condition what you'd like. But if you say, hey, listen, again, you're so far from the river and, it's, the river, someone's backyard, someone's house, someone's driveway, a paved road, then we think we can let you run some utilities. Like, that's fine too, right? So if you are going to impose conditions, you just got to make sure you're protecting the adjacent resource area. And so again, we've outlined in the plan erosion controls, we've outlined the limit of work. And even though the driveway is, we have a driveway that's being proposed, again, it's permeable, so we're not needing to 2-to-1 mitigate the entire area of the driveway itself, but there are mitigation plantings proposed as part of the site plan to take care of the areas that aren't permeable pavers. So this shows the proposed silt fence and wattles to go around the entirety of the property, and then there's a culvert just off site in the road, and they're going to install some riprap to stabilize the area toward that culvert to make sure that when the stormwater system goes in, there's no destabilization or impact to the existing drainage features out in the road. So stormwater doesn't, we don't need to provide a stormwater report because it's just a single family, but we did anyway. It's been a big conversation tonight with a bunch of other applications. It's been a big conversation in the last few months with a lot of applications. So we provided a stormwater report, although not required. It shows how all the roof runoff is being collected, how the driveway runoff is being collected. There are, again, some dry wells and infiltration devices underneath the driveway. And then if those are inundated, then it's going out to the existing drainage feature just off the property, but in a much more controlled fashion. Right now, in a big storm, you get, uncontrolled sheet flow down toward the road, and then it all kind of pours into this culvert. This obviously will help attenuate and clean up some of this flow. So then for the riverfront, you're presumed, if you're within 200 feet of the river, to be in an area of significance. However, you're allowed to rebut that, and this commission can find that this is actually not a project that is going to be significant to the river itself. And these are the 5 categories you look at. You look at water supply. Well, the Annisquam River doesn't involve the water supply, so no impact there. Groundwater. The stormwater system is improving the existing conditions. We are not going to be altering the groundwater in such a way as to be detrimental to the neighborhood or the environment. Storm damage prevention, we're well outside the flood zone. And again, to the degree that there's stormwater damaging properties currently, we're going to be attenuating that in a way that it's not occurring currently. Pollution, no negative impact on pollution. Again, arguably right now you have sheet flow that comes down this site, hits Riverview Road, picks up whatever's in the road and keeps going down toward the Annisquam River. Now the water that's flowing off the site will not be uncontrolled onto Riverview and will not be able to pick up whatever debris might be out in the road. And then again, protection of land containing shellfish, etc. Again, we're well upland of the Annisquam River. We are 185 feet, from the edge. And so if there's no impact in these interests, you can just say, yeah, this is not a project where the riverfront area, this is not a project where it's going to be a significant issue. Nevertheless, if you want to go through that and say we do think it's significant, then you have your performance standards. We have to show there's no practical and substantially equivalent alternative. And so as we explained in the NOI, there is a sizable acquisition cost and development cost of this lot. And so basically this 2-family we're proposing is been set to, the minimum we can do to still make this a economic endeavor. Otherwise, it's just a absolute loss. There's no room to relocate outside the riverfront area totally. Again, we are pushed as far back as we can go. And then as we're leaving your regulations, we're running into zoning regulations that say, hey, stop, you can't go any further toward the rear lot line than you already are. So the house is as far back and as far beyond the river as possible. And there's no suitable alternative land. It's not like, for example, there's available adjacent parcels where we could come in with a driveway from the side. The only access to this lot is from the road in front of the lot. And so you go, okay, so if there was no, equivalent economic alternative, you can't have any adverse impacts on the riverfront. And that's fine because the commission can authorize 5,000 square feet of alteration. We're under that by about 1050. But that still has to meet the following criteria. And as again, you look at these bullet points, we've hit all of these. We have stormwater management. The one thing we can't do is the 100-foot wide undisturbed natural vegetation corridor because the lot's just so small, right? Otherwise, no impact on wildlife habitat functions, no ACEC on site, no estimated rare species on site. And of course, we'll have erosion controls in place throughout the project construction. So there were some neighborhood concerns we saw in the file. The residents at 81 Riverview Road had some drainage concerns. They want to make sure there was not increased runoff to their property, not increased debris entering the Annisquam River. All that's covered in the NOI and the stormwater report. Again, permeable driveway, the dry well, the improved grading toward the existing culvert. So any drainage concerns, anyone who says, hey, listen, too much water gets into my basement, we won't be adding any water to the basement. If anything, we'll be helping to attenuate the flow that exists. At 79, very similar drainage concerns, same answer there. 79 also had some vernal pool concerns. In your file, there is a recent topographical survey, and you'll see there's no depression or geological markers of a vernal pool. There's no place for water to pool on this site. This site has no vernal pool registered with the registry, and there are no visible signs of a vernal pool. So we just think that concern, we're not sure where it came from because nothing on the site that's visual and nothing on the site that's topographical would lend one to think there's placement of a vernal pool possible on the property. And then someone at 72 River Road had some non-jurisdictional concerns about blasting and cutting. Again, even though blasting is really not within your purview, I'm willing to, say here tonight, there's obviously safety measures in place. There are blasting regulations. You can't just go do whatever you want just because it's not conservation's purview. So to the degree that neighbor's concerned about blasting and cutting, et cetera, there are regulations in place and you can't just go pull a building permit and do whatever you want, despite it not necessarily needing a condition from the Conservation Commission. So that was as fast as I could possibly talk with you, maybe understanding some of it without me getting totally blurry. We are looking to propose a two-family structure, driveway and utilities. We are partially within the 200-foot riverfront area. We don't think the presumption of significance is applicable here. Even if it has been deemed significant by you, the performance standards are met, which means we should be able to do it anyway. We are partially within the 100-foot buffer zone, but that's just the driveway utility work. None of the house is going to be in that buffer zone. You could deem all this minor activities, especially given that, again, we are between, there's a road, houses, driveways, backyards between us and the river. But even if you don't say it's a minor activity, we've met the performance standards, which allow you to then permit this work with conditions. And so I thank you. I'll stop my screen share and I'll turn it back to you. Thanks.
Killing my schedule here, Kim. All right, we're going to open up for public comment. Anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against the project at 68 Riverview Road may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 41 attendees and several hands up. First is Stephen Beardsley.
Thank you. My name is Beardsley, and my personal address is 38 Warren Street, Medford, Massachusetts. I'm representing the Beardsley Family Irrevocable Trust, which holds 77 Riverview. And I'd like to let the Caseys and or Bill Perviti to go first. Their written comments address any serious concerns of mine. And when they're done, if I had a minute, if they didn't cover anything I had to say.
Okay, well, we're keeping everything. We're trying to keep everything. We have a big agenda still to go through today.
Okay. I appreciate very much Joel's stormwater report, and the drainage is the only issue that I would possibly have. The one concern I have is that the drainage plan is basically to dump everything through the existing culvert after slowing it down with the riprap and other water slowing stuff, which is fine. It implies a commitment to keeping that system working properly in terms of filling out, making sure it doesn't get filled in or anything. It also implies that the swale going down the hill between the properties is sufficient to handle it if that system doesn't mitigate the lack of ground absorption that's being removed. And if it were possible to have a discussion with the Pravides and Casey's about that and possible improvements to the swale downstream from the culprit, I think that might be a productive thing to do with the neighbors. Thank you.
Next hand up is Seth Goldtime.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep, name, address of the record, sir?
Yes, Seth Goldfine. I live at 60 Riverview Road. And you'll excuse, I thank you for hearing me. Excuse me if I go over some things that have already been discussed, but obviously there are some sticking points here. If I could talk quickly about the site plans. Pervious paver driveways called out on site plan C1 and on detail sheet C3. References are made to see other details, but no such details for the pervious pavement are on any of these plans, in fact. And I understand from what Mr. Favaza said that this issue is a little bit up in the air. Notwithstanding the proposed pavers, the grading on the driveway apron directs more runoff onto Riverview Road than appears necessary. By adjusting the grading to achieve a greater cross slope, more runoff could be directed towards the riprap and culvert at the northeast corner of the site. I would ask the applicant to reconfirm the peak rate and volume assumptions, calculations, and modeling to ensure they're sufficiently conservative for this tiny riprap basin and culvert. The project description states that, quote, runoff from the proposed roof area will be collected and directed to an underground stormwater dry well as possible, end quote. And goes on to acknowledge that the, quote, infiltration of stormwater is not possible in all areas, end quote. It seems as though the planned control of runoff seems a bit vague when this is an ongoing neighborhood problem. Managing runoff on Riverview is critical, as Riverview is arguably a poster child for how to overburden a private road as development marches on with little municipal regulation or oversight of the aggregated storm drainage from newly developed properties. This all started with the installation of the sanitary sewer system some 20 years ago, which facilitated new development previously constrained by lots which couldn't support septic systems. Since the sewers have been installed, there are 17 new dwelling units added to the existing stock directly on just the loop portion of the Riverview. And if you add the units which sit up on the western edge of Pole Hill and are accessible only by very steep, long driveways off of Riverview, which drain onto Riverview, you add another 8 or so dwelling units. So the runoff onto Riverview has increased very, very substantially. The majority of Riverview and the entire loop portion have no engineered drainage structures or systems, so that virtually all of the drainage on the high side of the loop ends up flowing along the road to the river one way or another. The road was horribly reconstructed after the installation of the sewer system using a base material for bituminous pavement that was simply not suitable for its intended purpose. And since then, there's been significant roadway deterioration, and it's a constant battle for the neighborhood to keep up with annual repairs needed in large part due to drainage-related issues. I'd just like to make a few quick comments on the narrative portion of the NOI.
Sir, make them quick.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Under the presumptions of significance section, Seaside's project narratives claim that the, quote, locus is the last undeveloped lot in the neighborhood, unquote. As you can see from the maps that they provided with the NOI, this is simply not true. There are several undeveloped lots. Also, under the presumption of significance section, Seaside goes on to claim it is not economically feasible to construct anything less than a two-family duplex structure. What one developer considers economically feasible for this lot may be substantially different than what an individual or even a spec house builder might consider economically feasible. This is simply a Seaside opinion. With the major disruption this proposed development would bring to the site and the potential added runoff from both hard and semi-pervious surfaces, we think that the developer and his team should reconsider this as a viable site for a project of this size and scope. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next hand up is William for reading.
I'm going to request again, if everybody could try and not repeat other people's comments, that would be helpful. And to be brief, we have a 3-minute timetable on these, if possible. We have a lot to go through. Thank you.
My name is William Previty. I live at 79 Riverview Road, across the street from the proposed development. The culvert under discussion empties out in a swale that is on my property. And my concern is that with the additional hard surfaces being proposed for this development, there will in fact be more stormwater discharge through that culvert and the swale. And it could cause deterioration of the banks of the swale, which could cause property damage to the structures on my property. Permeable pavement is only permeable when the weather is favorable for it to be permeable. But under conditions like we have now, it's certainly not permeable, and all that water runoff would wind up traversing that swale between my property and 81 Riverview Road. That's my primary concern. Secondarily, that property does form a pond seasonally. It forms a shallow bowl with ledge bordering the rear side of the east side of the property, and the roadway on the west side of the property being above the elevation of the existing property. So there's no question, but that does form a pond during seasonal changes. Whether or not it's a vernal pond is yet to be determined. So I don't think you can say definitively that it is not a vernal pond. The culvert that was installed at my suggestion to the Public Works when they did put the forced sewer main in, because that lot used to pond so severely that it would run across the road and actually flood my septic system when we had a septic system, causing my septic system to fail. So I have great concerns about this development and the drainage proposed for the development. The size of the property is, I believe, excessive. It's 75 feet long, and it maxes out at about 3,000 square feet of buildable area, which is just at the very maximum of that which was permitted by zoning. I think to say that this is economically unfeasible to build something smaller is laughable. And
okay,
those
so
are concerns.
Okay. Sir?
Yes, I'm through.
Appreciate it. Okay, Chuck, who else?
Next hand up is Brian.
Again, I'm going to ask you to be brief, please. We have a lot to go through, please. Name and address for the record, Brian?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Brian Casey, 81 Riverview, Gloucester, Mass. And I'll try not to repeat.
Thank you.
I'll just summarize by saying the combination of large tree removal that was able to handle some of the water issues on the lot, the introduction of hard surfaces and 3,000 square feet and new roof, the fact that we end up with winters that go from mild to ones like we're having right now, or dry summers where the earth just bakes and won't absorb anything, and then you get hit with a rainstorm. I can see it leading to major problems. There are already major problems on the street. I've only been here for a little while now, but the neighbors have been here for many years. And I can already see the concerns, very concerned about the water overrunning the street, the property, and just coming straight into our yard and then washing all that down into the river.
Okay, thank you, sir. Unless you have something else to add.
There are no other hands up at this time.
Okay. Why don't we go through commissioner roll call comments then, Chuck? Seeing none, hearing none, I close the public comment period.
Member Cook.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the overall size of the project on such a small lot. And the fact that we have, basically all the environmental areas, all the trees being ripped out and everything. My feeling is that it's too big for that particular lot in that particular area. And that's just in general terms without going into any of the details.
Member Sargent.
I didn't see a great deal of detail about mitigation plantings. And I would like, the trees to be replaced in details as to, what species and where they would be replaced. And I'd like a 2-year monitoring for the mortality of that mitigation plantings and make sure that all dewatering would be adequately treated before being discharged.
Member Materi.
Couple of issues with sort of the contention that the driveway is accessory to the house, so it constitutes a minor activity. I don't agree with that. I mean, as you mentioned, the driveway is not expressly listed in section 1002 and the minor activities and accessory parts of it. I think a driveway is more common than a deck or patio or bulkhead or the other structures that are deemed by the regulations to be accessory to a house. So I would think that the omission was intentional and a driveway should not be considered accessory. I don't think that the utilities that are going through the private right of way, even though they're going through the private roadway right of way where they're not in an existing roadway, don't qualify as minor activities. I don't think you rebutted the presumptions for groundwater in your narrative, which only discussed stormwater flow. So I don't think that really addressed what the impact on groundwater would be. So I don't think you've rebutted that presumption. I don't think you've rebutted the presumption on wildlife habitat, as this is an undeveloped woodlot. So I think, there is some wildlife habitat that it provides. So I think that leaves you with sort of meeting the, riverfront performance standards. I think your alternatives analysis is conclusory. I think it's lacking. I think you make assertions about the property not being sort of economically viable without actually providing any backup for that. Just because you say it, I mean, doesn't make it so. Even if, you might have done that, I think you have to show it and prove it more than you have done already. Specifically, I'll draw your attention to the scope of alternatives that needs to be considered in section 1058 4C 2C, talking about adjacent undeveloped lots. 74 Riverview is an undeveloped lot that is next to this property. And that section in the scope of alternatives discusses providing evidence of making an offer, even if the offer is refused or rejected. So you know, that hasn't been considered, or at least it hasn't been discussed in your alternatives analysis as, you know, a potential alternative that's been investigated. I feel like there are serious concerns about drainage. All of the surface water that doesn't get, um, you know, fallen from the roof into the dry well, that's going to flow into the culvert, and that goes directly into the river. So I think there's a big concern about potential pollution of the river from that water. Your plans appear to show a proposed riprap area that's located on 62 Riverview. If you're going to do that work in order to get your stormwater into that drain inlet, I think you're going to need a drainage easement to go onto the neighbor's property. And I guess my last question is in that corner of the property next to 62 Riverview and next to the drainage inlet, is there additional infiltration or treatment that's possible there through, you know, some sort of like a rain garden or something like that, or some sort of treatment device before it reaches the inlet? And that's all my questions.
Member Grillo.
I concur with Carrie and Bill. This is it's a pretty small lot. My bigger issue is still the trees. We're getting into this habit of thinking we can just strip the properties and then mitigation will take care of the rest. And I would like to see if there's any opportunities here to save any of these trees and build around them if possible, and utilize whatever possible vegetation that is left, rather than just scrape the entire site.
Jackson.
I concur with the preceding comments. In addition, I would like to know if Cape Ann Vernal Pond team was planning to investigate this vernal pond before this application came before us. And I don't remember whether Mr. Favaza addressed Abutter Palmisano's concerns about the house being 13 feet from her home and potential damage through the work process.
Okay. In the interest of time, I won't address everything tonight. I'm happy to make sure I touch everything before next meeting in a supplemental filing. Just a couple of quick questions to answer to Commissioner Jackson in reverse order. The Palmisano concerns again are about blasting, and the majority of the blasting is going to be outside the jurisdiction anyway. And you know, it's her house is where her house is, right? Her house is far too close to the property line than it's supposed to be. That's, you know, her burden. Obviously, like I mentioned in my presentation, will comply with all the blasting regulations and make sure there are pre-blast surveys, et cetera. Like, you know, there's a lot of safety regulations in place around blasting that are non-jurisdictional to Concom, but still exist and will still make this project go through those hoops before they start any sort of site work. Going back out to Mr. Vichiri, 74 Riverview Road is held in common ownership with 72 Riverview Road. And there are, in fact, improvements on 74. So it is not an undeveloped lot. And I believe, based on the size of 72, which is undersized to the doctrine of merger, these two lots are actually now considered one lot from a zoning standpoint. So there is no undeveloped adjacent lot. 74 is owned by 72 and does have improvements constructed on it. So there is no other access, and there would be no ability to make an offer, because even if 72 wanted to sell us 74, zoning law would prohibit them from breaking off 74 and selling it to us. And then as far as Mr. Gullah, I think actually there may be the ability to save some of those trees. So certainly we can come back with you know, looking, if you look at the trees there on the kind of left-hand side of this picture, those two might be salvageable. Again, I'll have to talk to the people doing the work, whether or not they can work around it. And there may be something to be saved in the top corner where that cluster is. I'm not saying that they all have to come down. Obviously, it's easier if they come down, but if that helps get us there, we can certainly look at that. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll be done for tonight, and we'll come back with some more in a bit, is I just want to return back to this slide, because it's if there are concerns about the size of the building, I gotta remind you, only the part of the building in orange is within 200 feet of the Annisquam River. None of the building is even in the buffer zone, right? The buffer zone is everything, seaward of the red line. So just a little bit of the driveway entrance, some of the riprap areas. That's the only part that's in the buffer zone. Everything else is in the outer edge of the riverfront area. And as far as the house is concerned, um, a vast majority of that house is beyond the 200-foot buffer. So again, there's a limit for a reason, right? You're allowed to impact up to 5,000 square feet or 10% if it's a bigger number. And we are at about, 79% of that limit. So I think it's unfair to say this is too big or it's too much because the regulations say your limit is 5,000 and we are about 1,050 square feet below that limit. And so with that, we'll end it and we'll get you a supplemental filing in time for the next meeting so we can hopefully check the rest of those boxes.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0283034 at 68 Riverview Road to the Conservation Commission meeting of March 5th. Did you want?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Thank you, Bill.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Bella,
Yeah,
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
okay. I'm gonna request we have a 5-minute break before we start the next round of hearings. So everybody has 5 minutes to stretch their legs and we'll come back. All right, the band's almost back together. We can reconvene now and let. Oh, there he is. Speak, you shall come. All right. We're going to reconvene this meeting of the Conservation Commission. We left off at Riverview Road, and we're moving on to notice of intent 02830. Did we closed the hearing, correct, Joel, for the other project?
Yes, we continued it out for a meeting.
Okay. So next up is notice of intent 0283035. I'm sorry.
68 Riverview. We're now on to 3, 6, and 7 Welsh Lane.
Yep.
Okay. For the record, Joel Favazza.
Commissioner Sargent recuses.
Okay.
Should I wait for Bill to come back?
Do we have enough to go and move it? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, we've got 4 of us.
Okay. For the record, Joel Favazza, Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street, here on behalf of RDL Welch Lane LLC, owner of 3, 6, and 7 Welch Lane and R. Woodman Street. Got real good news for you guys. I'm trying to learn from past instances, and so my guess is that you all are going to want at minimum to come out and see the site, and my other guess is that you're probably going to want to have a third-party reviewer take a look at the stormwater system. So tonight I'm just going to share 3 quick plans and ask for those things to be put into motion. So this is the proposed subdivision over on Welch Lane. This is the existing conditions plan. That kind of mint green area is the buffer zone and resource area. And then on this last page, the bluish area is the actual wetland itself. The kind of mint green is buffer zone that is not being altered, and the kind of lime green is the area in question that would be altered. And as you can see, the main alterations are 1, the expansion of Welch Lane and the installation of proposed stormwater management systems on the bank heading down toward the wetland resource area. This will not absorb all of the runoff from the subdivision. There is another management facility proposed up in the upland, but these 2 will be taking on the drainage as shown in your file. You have the full stormwater report, which includes test pits, calculations pre and post, and explains how this conforms with the stormwater standards. Nevertheless, I'll end as I started. I anticipate you'd like to come out and see it, and I anticipate you may want to have a third-party review. If that's the case, I'd love to get those scheduled and ask for continuance for a month.
Wonderful. Okay. I don't think, Chuck, do you have any concerns with this? Mr. Favazza's got us flat-footed, I think, with this. So we could.
Well, do we want to open it up for public comment?
But we just want to make sure everyone's on board to this point. Okay, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people who want to speak towards this issue or this project. Please do not repeat the same question that other people have suggested or commented. It would be very much appreciated. We try to hear everybody, but we really need you to kind of tighten it down, keep it within 3 minutes. With that, why don't we open up the public hearing? If anybody wishes to speak for or against the project at Welch Lane, you may do so by hitting the measure button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 35 attendees. First hand up is Melanie Jelenu.
Melanie, you mute yourself. Unmute yourself. There you go.
Good evening.
Yep, name and address for the record, please.
Ron Gelano, 647 Essex Ave in Gloucester. We live directly across from this project. The size and scope of the road that they are requesting is said to be 44 feet wide. And that is a considerable ask of this Conservation Commission. That crosses wetlands, that affects our land. We have a major flooding problem. I provided pictures to the conservation agent. I've looked through the paperwork. There's a lot in that paperwork that isn't complete, doesn't have dates, and doesn't have all the information that should be on that. And I think it's a project that really should be looked at very, very closely. It impacts our house, which dates back to 1775. You can roll a tennis ball over 1,000 feet from the east and it will land in our driveway. So all the water runoff is a major concern to us. And I would like to ask you to for a third-party review of this project and try to answer some of these questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next, John.
Next up is Lillian.
Lillian, unmute yourself. Joe. Name and address for the record. Lillian, you hear me? Hand is up. You're not muted anymore. Can you hear me?
She has muted herself again. I'll lower her hand if she wants to speak. Please raise your hand again. Move on to Joel Swan.
Good evening. My name is Joel Swan, and I live at 648 Essex Avenue in Gloucester. The Welch Lane project is described as minor and basic proposals to relocate and upgrade Welch Lane, along with extending all water and sewer lines to serve a proposed 16 dwelling subdivision and includes a stormwater management system to handle runoff. The commission is being asked to approve this proposal for the existing road on Welch Lane before the entire subdivision has even been vetted by the other Gloucester boards and officials. The exact location of the cul-de-sac, the number and locations of buildings, and the driveways is yet to be examined. The proposed sewer line to serve this whole subdivision is also questionable. The 2011 sewer extension for Welch Lane was approved with a capacity limit of 14 bedrooms, not 16 dwellings. Before the commission is asked to approve the project, I think the applicant should seek the proper required approvals from other Gloucester officials first. It includes a stormwater management report stating that all vegetation on the proposed project will be removed and replaced by lawns and landscape. And the attorney has actually stated that the location of the stormwater vaults is located in the BVW will also require tree and vegetation removal, and ask the commission for their thoughts. The plan states the existing duplex on Welch Lane will not have its runoff mitigation system tied into the new system, despite being described as somewhat limited due to relatively small depths to the high water table and bedrock. I recommend the commission seek an independent third-party review of the stormwater proposal. The commission itself is very familiar with this applicant's project and the same location for over the past 2 decades. The approval of the Welch Lane duplex stated that any further development on the entire 6-acre site would require a full habitat study, a vernal pool determination, and designated a no disturb zone. The new stormwater management vaults system is planned for being in that no disturb zone. Doesn't make sense. In 2018, the applicant sought a project on the budding property of Essex Avenue, which was finally approved, and immediately trees and vegetation was removed, the large hill was excavated, and it was been left in this barren condition for more than 6 years. there's frequently runoff from the top of Welch Lane into the resource area, resulting in increased ponding that's actually breaches across the roadway there. I recommend that a new resource delineation be performed, including hydrology testing to determine the full extent of this resource. Finally, I also recommend that the applicant be required by the commission to complete the 2 open order of conditions at the Welch Lane site and the Essex Avenue site, and perform all the required mitigation efforts that they agreed to back then, or reconstruct the properties back to the original natural condition before beginning a whole new project. This applicant has a history in this site of attaining approvals, removing trees and vegetation, excavating, and then moving on to the next part of the project, leaving the site, the resource area disturbed. I thank the commission for this opportunity to express my concerns and recommendations. Thank you very much.
There are no other hands up at this time.
All right, roll call commissioner comments, Chuck.
Member Cook. You're muted.
You're muted though.
No comments at this time. I mean, I really want to see the third-party review on the stormwater before we make any decision, before I make any decision.
Member Materi.
Yeah, I agree. I'm ready to move for a third-party review for stormwater as well.
Member Bella.
I agree. I'm also, I do want to jump on that issue. I would expect something from Mr. Babaza also in terms of what was said about previous projects if they're not completed. That would be a concern for me too, especially the location of some of those wetlands. That would be it for me.
Member Jackson.
I really appreciated Mr. Swan's comments as well as those of the other abutters on this project. I also advocate for a third-party review and a site visit, I think, regarding not only the stormwater, but some of the other issues that have been brought up, such as whether the ORAD does benefit from all of the extensions that have been granted. And the cul-de-sac is a new part of the road. So as opposed to falling under the parts of the regulations that were quoted. Those are just some of my concerns. I don't want to limit it right now for anything else. And I do think at some point, aside from this application, we should look at whether there is an enforcement order needed for any of the other areas that are not under an active order of conditions.
I had one question, if I might. I noticed that you filed this as a buffer zone only project. But a part of the existing ANRAD and delineation includes a intermittent stream that extends from the head wall currently constructed down to the wetland. To expand that road as proposed, it's going to cover, 15 plus feet of that intermittent stream, which is going to impact intermittent stream and also its bank, both of which are resource areas. So I don't know that this is properly categorized as a buffer zone only project. I think the scale of some of these plans that we're seeing, that little area is kind of forgotten. But I think I'd personally like to see some more, plans on what is proposed down on this area here. But I think it's also important for the commissioners to review some of the previous orders of conditions that I believe did have some continuing conditions, that may impact what can be done in the other portions of the buffer zone. to that wetland.
Okay, thanks for that, Chuck. All right. Mr. Bavaza, anything to say? Add, I should say.
Yeah, sure. So I welcome the commission to, seek independent counsel, but the ORAD that you approved remains valid. So I'd hope that you would honor what you determined the wetland boundaries to be previously. As to Chuck's question, he raises a good question. I'm gonna have to talk to the engineers about that and see if your read of the plan is the situation. If it is, obviously that requires an amended filing. The last two things, some of the concerns raised by neighbors, if currently there's a bad runoff situation and you don't let us upgrade the road, we can't upgrade the drainage, right? Like the improvements and the solution to existing problems that predate this application are in this application, right? If Welch Lane is if they think Welch Lane is putting too much runoff into Essex Ave, which I'm not saying that it is, but if they think that's the case, they should want to see all these catch basins and all this drainage and all these stormwater management systems being installed, because that's the way in which you deal with both the existing runoff and any proposed additional runoff. And the last thing was, as far as the order of operations, I think tonight was a perfect example. The reason we've come to you first is, again, trying to, learn from previous projects. Upper Banjo got permitted by the planning board in 2021, 2022. It's now beginning of 25, and we've had to redesign the drainage several times, remove footpaths. And when that's all said and done, if we get an order of conditions from this commission, we have to go back to the planning board to amend their previous approval. So for this project, I advise the client that, hey, before we go get the planning board to lock in the subdivision, let's go to the Conservation Commission first and make sure that we get this entrance corridor that comes, the first few hundred feet of Welch Lane. Let's make sure we get that right, so that when we go to the planning board, we know that the location of Welch Lane, again, to Chuck's point, if Chuck's point is correct and we have, this expansion of Welch Lane into a resource area that we weren't anticipating, it'd be a real shame to have gone through 9 months of the planning board, only have to go back. So there's nothing in any conservation regulation, there's nothing in any city ordinance that says you must go to board 1 before you can go to board 2. And given that the entrance to this subdivision is squarely within your jurisdiction, we see it make the most sense to dial that in now, dial in the stormwater systems now, and then if we're able to get through this hurdle, proceed over to the planning board with your approval in hand. And like I said, ready for a third-party review. If you want to visit the site, that's fine. And I think we should probably push this out for at least a month to check in. Oh, I'm so sorry. The last thing I'll say is I want to be clear that off-site orders on properties owned by different entities are irrelevant to a project on this property by this owner. And so, site-specific orders or conditions are certainly fair game to look at and make sure that we're in compliance. But if, neighbors complaining about something that's being done on a different piece of property, that is not within the purview of the review on this particular matter. Thank you.
Okay, so what kind of timetables you looking at?
Let's push it out a month. In that month, I'd love to get the third-party review lined up prior to, and then do a check-in a month from now.
March 19th.
We want to try to schedule a site visit before we.
I don't know if it make a lot of sense right now because of all the snow on the ground, but it's just dangerous, I would guess, that site in this weather.
I mean, I would think we can get to the March 19th meeting and then maybe schedule a site review then. Hopefully there'll be a little melt by then.
It does look like it's going to get warmer eventually.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0283036 at 3, 6, and 7 Welsh Lane and R. Woodman Street to the Conservation Commission meeting of March 19th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Viteri,
Yes. Yes.
Member Gullah, and Member Jackson.
Yes. And Mr. Pavaza, thank you very much for knowing exactly what we were going to ask for. We appreciate that.
You know, I learned.
You do.
I gotta go grab a charger, be right back.
Okay.
So next up is notice of intent 028-025-211 East Main Street, John Alexander, replacement of 40 graded piles on existing piers and coastal resource areas. Joel Fabazza, Legal Seaside Solutions, PC.
Commissioner Sargent has returned.
Welcome back.
Thank you. For the record again, Joel Favaza, Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street, here on behalf of Beacon Marine Basin Incorporated, the applicant, John Alexander Jr. being the principal of that. So we're at 211 East Main Street, and what we're trying to do here is go and replace some of the licensed piles. This is the Beacon Marine Basin. The entire site is pier. Basically, the seawall is up against the outer limit of East Main Street. And like I said, that there's a 91 license on this that authorizes, arguably requires maintenance. And so we're looking to replace 40 degraded piles in kind. It's less than 50 square feet of land under the ocean impacted. And again, the land under the ocean being impacted is the land that already has a pile driven into it. They're going to come basically with a chainsaw, cut the deck, hoist it out, pound the new one in, patch the deck. These are regulatory standards. So again, it requires we use the best available measures to minimize adverse impacts. We're going to use silt booms throughout while pile driving. And if there's any other, reasonable conditions the commission wants to add, that's probably fine. We are not within an estimated area of rare species. And again, we have limited the alteration of the bottom by pulling the piles out exactly where they are and putting them back down where they were. A little bit of housekeeping. We need to submit a supplemental fee. We had originally calculated it based on the linear feet of work. We've been asked to recalculate it based on the linear feet of the pier, and that's fine. We're going to submit a supplemental check there, both to you and to DEP for their share. And then Chuck actually had a welcome suggestion that if we convert this to seek kind of perpetual conditions. This is not the first time this has been before you, and it's likely the last time that these piles are going to need to be replaced. And so we'd like to use this NOI process to establish some ongoing conditions that basically run perpetually. We don't go get a certificate of compliance and close it out. And we just kind of set up a protocol that says, in the future, my suggestion would be provide a brief written narrative and a plan showing the piles to be replaced, and comply with whatever the conditions are for this work. So whatever we determine in this process, via the silt booms and, that sort of stuff would just be perpetual, so that in the future, another 10 piles need to be replaced. We wouldn't have to go through this entire process and make you re-permit what you've permitted previously. For this particular pile replacement project, we submitted a little sketch of the piles that are going to be replaced. And again, the proposal is just kind of cut it open, pull them out, pound the new ones, patch it up. Excuse me. These are just the site plans. And so, yeah, we meet the performance standards of the Wetland Protection Act. The Gloucester ordinance is silent on this. And so we believe you can condition the project to allow it to move forward. And again, we just ask that the commissions be considered as ones that could continue in perpetuity, so that we don't have to take up your lengthy agenda time in the future.
Okay, first up, I'll open up for public comment. Anybody in the public wish to speak for or against the project at 211 East Main Street? If so, you may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen, or hitting *9 or on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 25 attendees, and there are no hands up.
And then hearing in the close public comment period, move on to commissioner roll call comment.
Yep, Member Cook.
Not particular to this project, but I thought we already had a process in place for replacing pilings, for maintenance of replacing pilings throughout the harbor area. comments. I don't know if there's really a need to add it to this in perpetuity. But perhaps Chuck can tell us more if we do have one.
Yeah, so there was the order of conditions that was intended to be continually renewed for the DPA. I believe this may have been part of that previously, but I believe it's changed and is no longer within the DPA. That NOI has expired. I've been working with the harbor master. That should be coming to the commission in the next month or so for the remaining parcels in the DPA that want to be part of that. So that's why I recommended, a similar type situation for this, that, kind of a maintenance plan that would still require them to notify the conservation office, the harbor master, building department, still would require a building permit. But would kind of, as long as they kept it active and maintain the recommendations by DMF and other agencies, it kind of speed up the process for that type of maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
Member Sergeant?
I'm in favor of, the proposal of having it in perpetuity, and I'd like to incorporate DMF's and the harbor master's comments into that.
Member Terry?
I don't have any comments.
Member Bell?
Normally in perpetuity would really scare me. I don't like that term, but in this particular case, it makes sense. Dealing with
Be perpetuity in the sense that it would still have to come and be renewed every 3 years. So, Member Jackson?
I agree that DMF comments should be adhered to. I thought we were still waiting on shellfish, and the harbor master had some questions that I think require expansion of detail on the plans, which I think was a concern that has been discussed before.
I did want to note too that these comments from DMF are based on the initial filing and not for any continued work. So you'd be able to reach out to DMF to have them comment on any conditions for continued type work. I know they usually limit it to 20 piles a year and some different other conditions. So reach out to them and see if they'd have additional comments.
All right, well, we don't want to get off the topic, so we're here to work with those 85 piles, correct? Mr. Bavaza, is that what you're looking for approval for tonight?
Yep.
Well, you haven't responded to the harbor master comments for additional information.
Correct, so we may have to continue.
And if the perpetuity condition is going to be part of this, then the outreach to DMF needs to be accomplished.
All right, so where are we going to go with this? This is kind of that rabbit hole I was afraid of with wrapping these two together.
I think it should be continued to have a chance to get all of that information in.
Anybody else have any other comments?
We don't have a stamped engineering plan either, do we?
No.
That comes with the building permit process.
Yeah, that is something that'll be required by the building department.
Okay. So, this is a little incomplete, and I'm not sure that I don't have any problem with the project, but I have a problem with the lack of completeness of information.
So we can respond to the DMF comment, basically say, yes, we're following the recommendations, and the harbor master comment about more detail on the project narrative. That's fine. As far as engineered plan, it's kind of cart before the horse. We need to get through this step and get the okay to do this before we shell out for the engineering plan that the building department will require. So if you want to continue out for a meeting so that we can get you something in the file. This is what, yes, we'll comply with DMF's suggestions and provide the expanded narrative that the harbor masters asked. That would, check those boxes. And then again, if Chuck wants to reach out and confirm with DMF that there's no additional, or if there are additional recommendations for perpetual conditions, we can, get that resolved also.
Okay, but so for now, we're okay with continuing for how long?
I mean, if DMF's responsive, we only need to go out to the next meeting.
Okay, let's give it a try. Okay, Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0283035 at 211 East Main Street to the Conservation Commission meeting of March 5th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
Member Bella,
Yeah.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
Right. Are you up? You next up? Is that why you're smiling at me?
Yeah, one more and then I'm leaving you alone.
And Joe, we're up.
We're on Edgewood Road. Sorry. 3038. 2 Edgewood Road. It's the first one on the continued page of the agenda. You got it?
think so. No, I don't. I'm still, why'd you move ahead?
Yep. Okay, next up is NOI 0283038 at 2 Edgewood Road, Wayne Olson, for additions to a single-family home and buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland, represented by Joel Favaza, Seaside Legal Solutions, PC.
Thank you. For the last time this evening, I'm Joel Favaza, an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street here in Gloucester. This application is brought on behalf of Wayne Olson and Elizabeth Sciolino. They are the owners of 2 Edgewood Road. And what they are looking to do is to construct addition on 2 sides of the house. One of those additions is within a buffer zone. And so you see this pond on this aerial map. It is a man-made pond, but it is larger than 10,000 square feet. So it hits the definition in the regs, which means you got to cast a 100-foot buffer around it. And when you do that, it grabs a little bit of my client's property. We're going to skip these long, lengthy slides. That's all stuff that's already in the record. The only thing I'll highlight is we are proposing 2-to-1 mitigation. And so we are here doing buffer zone work. You can require erosion and sedimentation controls, preservation of natural vegetation, etc., which we're offering. So again, this is the overall site. That's the GIS. And if I zoom in here, this is the actual plan itself, which shows existing vegetation and filled in green. And then in the outlining green area would be the 52 square feet of proposed mitigation, because there's a whopping 26 square feet of proposed additional impervious within 100 feet to that man-made pond. The little circle here with the arrow pointing at it, that's the approximate vicinity of the proposed 2-to-1 ratio of mitigation planting. Just want to make sure you can see from this one that it's just taking the existing property and just kind of squaring off this little L, right? The property right now is in a complete rectangle. I'm just going to kind of fix that little part right there. So in conclusion, the limit of the work is only in the locus. We're across from Edgewood Road from the man-made pond that is the resource area. We're not going to disrupt natural vegetation. We're willing to accept the condition that we install erosion controls along Edgewood Road if you'd like. And we're proposing a 2-to-1 mitigation planting area to account for the 26 square feet of additional impervious in the buffer zone. Thank you.
I think that's the fastest you've ever spoken. Okay, we'll open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 2 Edgewood Road?
We currently have 23 attendees and no hands are up.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. We'll move on to commissioner comments.
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Sergeant,
I'd like the mitigation plantings to be native vegetation. And I'd like a 2-year monitor for the mortality of mitigation plantings and all dewatering to be adequately treated before being discharged.
Member Terry,
I don't think it needs to be said, but I'll say it anyway. Condition to install erosion and sedimentation controls along Edgewood Road, and of course the mitigation plantings.
Member Bello,
Nothing further to add.
and Member Jackson.
I also have nothing further to add. Do you have any comments, Chuck?
I do not.
Huh. I've forgotten how to do this. Okay. Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public hearing for NOI 0283038 at 2 Edgewood Road.
Commissioner Cook seconds?
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Bello.
Yeah.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Commissioner Jackson moves to approve NOI 0283038 at 2 Edgewood Road with the aforementioned conditions, including native mitigation, monitoring for 2 years, dewatering, treated dewatering, and erosion and sedimentation controls along Edgewood.
Commissioner Cook seconds?
Roll call. Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Bello,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. I knew I'd get at least one if I kept throwing more at you. So you guys have a great night.
Something will stick. All right. Rob, you taking over again?
Yeah, might as well.
Okay. If you want, yeah, you're fine. You haven't got much more.
0283039 Riverview Road, Bryan Case for additions to existing single-family home utilities in riverfront area, subject to land subject to coastal storm flowage, coastal bank. Robert Griffin, Griffin Engineer, LLC, resident. Name and address of record, sir.
Good evening, Bob Griffin, Griffin Engineering, 495 Cabot Street, Beverly, Mass. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. Okay. Here on behalf of Brian and Wendy Casey, you may recall that they came to the commission last fall to remove an unpermitted deck. They had purchased this property approximately June of last year, and there was an issue about a deck and some pier portions had extended beyond the Chapter 91 license. So as a condition of the purchase of the property, that offending deck was removed. And obviously the Casey's bought it with the intention of expanding and improving on the building, which is what we're here for tonight. The site is a little challenging. Let's move in here. Let's try. I'm going to zoom in on the site plan in a second here, but we have a challenging topography, 1966 construction of the building, and the Casey's have retained Josh Fenelloso of Brown and Fenelloso Architects to design the building additions here. This slide shows the wetland resources. So the light blue line on the left is the mean high water. We use that to measure the 200-foot riverfront area. This entire property is within the 200-foot zone. It's a very small piece of land. It's only about 9,500 square foot lot area. It's only 67 feet wide along the street, so it's a very small parcel. There's a parking court out by the street here. This is the cobblestone driveway area. The second resource area I've identified here is the land subject to coastal storm flowage. This is an AE zone, elevation 13. So you can see it comes up the bank a little ways and it touches the building on two sides. So the building is on the coastal bank itself. The yellow line is the coastal bank line that's determined by the change in topography. So it's basically at about the back of the existing house. And the three sort of building additions are the shaded gray areas. I'll talk about those as we go along. We also have a minor change to an existing shed out by the driveway. We're going to reduce the size of the shed that exists out there by about 1/2. That's about, anyways, couple of pictures here. This is the existing house. It's a two-story house, but only 1 story above the street grade. Apologize for that noise. I got a train going by here.
Losing you. Speak up, Bob.
Sorry. The picture on the right shows a house and one of the decks that we're going to improve. It shows a patio as well. Part of the project is removal of this walkway and this patio area that you see here. This is a view from the Annisquam side. 2 levels of living space. You both have a deck that sticks out towards the Annisquam, and here's a picture of the embankment going up the hill. So the elevation 13, land subject to coastal storm flowage, is about where that pine tree is there. It also shows some existing ivy on the ground, and I'll talk about that as we go along as well. The proposed 3 building additions, 2 of the building additions are basically enclosing existing deck space. So this is sort of on the north side, we're calling it, of the property here. This is about 110 square feet of existing deck that will get a full wall around it and a roof over it to make it living space. And on the south side, this deck is about 260 square feet, and the same sort of thing. We're going to make it living space and add it to the existing living space that is part of the building. The existing deck on the north side will get a new foundation. It needs a new foundation. It'll be sort of a crawl space kind of concrete foundation. The one on the south side, we think we can reuse existing concrete piers that currently support the deck. There'll also be, as part of this addition on the south side, an exit from the lower level out onto this improved structure with 8 or 9 steps going down towards the existing pier and deck on the water side. So provide another means of accessing the pier and the waterfront from the building. Right now, the only way to get there is off of the back of the building, essentially, as we're looking at this plan, or the right side as we're looking at this plan. And there'll be a small little gravel pathway to make that connection. The largest building addition is the one on the driveway side, the east side. This is around 910 square feet. Averages about 50 feet from the building to the very far back, and about 22 feet wide at the most. You can see we're showing some infiltration strips along here, along both sides of the building addition, and also along the deck on the south side. These are all intended to allow at least 1 inch of stormwater runoff from the roof, from the tributary roof area, to get into the ground. So the static storage volume of those infiltration strips is that 1 inch. Of course, more than 1 inch will go into the ground, again, depending on rainfall intensity and ground conditions. As part of the project, I know we're a little pressed for time here. Here's our riverfront table. We have right now about 3,500 square feet of degraded riverfront area on the site. We're going to add around 750 square feet to that. If we were starting from scratch, I think the 5,000 square foot threshold would apply, the 1058-4 regulation. Since it's a redevelopment, we're going to provide 2-to-1 mitigation for the increase, which is around 750 square feet of increase. And we're doing that mostly through some landscaping. This is the Casey's landscaper, Palazzolo Brothers Landscaping, has provided a plan showing basically removal of invasive ivy from about 1,200 square feet on the south side of the building here. That's this large green shaded area, and then replacing it with some coastal salt tolerant shrubs and grasses. We also, noting on the landscaping plan, the removal of 6 trees. Of these 6, 2 of them fall below the Gloucester Concom threshold of 6 inches as far as specifying mitigation. So we have 4 trees, and we have 8 replacement trees specified by Palazzolo Brothers Landscaping. These are red maples, serviceberry, and some white and gray birches, and those are shown on the plan as well. The combination of the 1,200 square feet of removal of invasives here and the deck removal that I mentioned earlier gets us to around 1,500 square feet and provides that 2-to-1 mitigation. And that's the quick summary of the project. I'd be happy to address any questions.
Right, well done.
Thank you.
Okay. First up, I'll open up for public comment. Anybody who wishes to speak for or against the project at 8 Riverview may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 20 attendees and there are no hands up.
Seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public comment period. Next up will be commissioner comments. Roll call.
Member Cook.
I'm wondering what's being done to help mitigate, because this is strange because they're having issues with water running off the street and they've already got issues at the basement. And I don't see any type of swales or anything to help anything that's going to cause that. And we're just putting more structures in the front. And they're already say they're dealing with water issues. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I'd like to see some type of drainage swales or something that can help collect some of the water or anything that's coming off the street into the driveway area to help the problem that they're saying they're already having.
Member Sergeant?
I agree with Commissioner Cook, and I'm wondering if there's enough overburden to really handle 1 inch of treatment. And I have to say that putting pesticides on the English ivy that's right next to shellfish flats doesn't help the shellfish flats. English ivy doesn't hurt shellfish, but the application of an herbicide, there's potential for damage to the shellfish flats. Thank you.
Okay.
It wasn't clear from the narrative, but I would like a condition that the agent attends the pre-construction conference with your contractor.
Member
I agree with the previous comments, and I'll add with the terms of the ivy and getting a little concerned again that we don't put enough weight in the long-term control of some of these. We give away the how sort of say the project now, and we in perpetuity of 3 years or longer for some of these invasives, I think is not uncalled. They're invasives and they're going to try and come back again and again. We don't manage them as well as we can, and yet we give away the extra with the improvements without really looking at the long-term effects of these invasives.
Member Jackson?
I couldn't understand all of Rob's speech, but I think perhaps a long-term maintenance plan for the ivy certainly would be in order. I share Mr. Sargent's concerns about the herbicide on the shellfish flats, but otherwise I want to thank the applicant for a very well organized and thorough presentation. It was very helpful, especially at the end towards the end of a long meeting.
Okay, is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay. So the herbicide for the ivy was recommended by the landscaper, but I had a hunch that it was going to not do well. So I think what we would like to do for the ivy is to do a mechanical removal. And then I think the long-term maintenance, we would expect that there would be a 2-year survivorship on the mitigation program. So that once the ivy is removed mechanically or manually, and the new mitigation plants are planted, we would anticipate demonstrating, after 2 years that the ivy isn't coming back. And so that would give us a pretty good start on the long term, keeping the ivy at bay. To the extent that the ivy is on an adjacent property, it might tend to come back. I think that would be addressed by the long-term management in some sort of surviving condition that would address that. In regards to the stormwater runoff We did include in the plan some infiltration for the roof runoff of the additions. I didn't put any improvements in for the stormwater associated with the current parking area or that portion of the road. The parking area does drain back towards Riverview Road, and then it drains to that culvert that was discussed earlier this evening. I'm certainly, okay with sort of maintaining that drainage pattern, or perhaps, keeping that area clean. But the culvert isn't really, on our property. It's on the adjacent property at, I think, 79. So I guess I'm open for ideas on that. We certainly don't intend to make things any worse. And I thought that the infiltration strips would be helpful in this instance. As far as Mr. Vitteri's comment about having the agent attend the pre-construction meeting, of course, that's a yes. And I think that covers it.
Okay.
Go.
So you're saying that the driveway feeds back towards Riverview Road, so the runoff on Riverview Road is not going into your property per se. It's going down the street to a catch
Let me pull up
basin.
the topo plan just to make sure I'm correct on that, because now I'm thinking that I'm not.
I just like to check it because in the previous one earlier, that was one of the statements that was made.
Let's see, you probably can't see that. Let me try to share again for a second. All right, so here's the 12-inch drain that was discussed earlier, and you can see that the water comes out of it and it flows down across the 79 property. We're on this side of the line here. And our contour lines here, we've got a 33 here and a 32. Actually, I think the water is going across our cobblestone driveway and getting into the swale in this direction, as opposed to coming back out into Riverview and then flowing down to here and then getting into the swale. But the driveway is sloping towards the swale on the adjacent property. And right now it does seem to work. At least the driveway drains towards the swale. So.
Okay.
Any more comments, commissioners?
Does Chuck have any comments?
I do not.
Okay.
Okay, so commissioners, are we all good? You want to do a site visit? Continue?
Need to close the public hearing?
Yeah, I think we feel like we have enough to move forward, Rob.
I agree.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public hearing for NOI 0283039 at 81 Riverview Road.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook.
Yes.
Sergeant.
Yes.
Member Terry.
Yes.
Member Bella.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes, Commissioner Jackson moves to approve NOI 0283039 at 81 Riverview Road with the aforediscussed conditions, including mechanical removal of the ivy with a long-term management condition for that ivy. Pre-construction conference with the agent. Anything else? Removing the 4 trees and replacing with 8. That was in the plan. And the mitigation.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sergeant.
Yes.
Member Terry.
Yes.
Member Bella. Yes. Jackson.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all very much, and good night.
Good night.
Okay. Moving down the line, the notice of 10-028-3040-403 Western Susan Chapel for replacement of the septic system and buffer zone bordering vegetated wetland. Jay Nottenheim of Mill River Consulting.
There we go, commissioners. Good evening again. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Hello, this one hopefully is short, sweet, and non-controversial. A septic system upgrade that has been approved by the Board of Health. Here for your consideration, please. I will quickly go through a brief presentation. It's to replace the septic system in a buffer zone, no work in any resource area, and we're complying with the buffer zone performance standards. So in short, this is the site, lots of ledge. The only place available for the septic upgrade is kind of where it is now. On the neighboring property to the rear, there is BVW. Closest point of work is about 36 feet away. The work zone would be surrounded by erosion control. A few pictures and then I'll stop. This is generally the work zone, the backyard here. One thing I do want to point out is the neighboring property actually rises up before going back down to where the wetlands are. So while we will have erosion control all back here, if for some reason that were to fail, there is still a rise in topography before you reach the next property. You can see that over here as well. I'm sorry, rise in topography before you reach the wetlands. So that's essentially the project, and appreciate your consideration of an order of conditions.
Good. Next step would be public comment. Anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against the project at 403 West.
Currently have 14 attendees and there are no hands up.
Oh. Am I on? What happened?
You're fine. It's time to move on to commissioner comments.
Member Cook?
No comments.
Member Sergeant?
No comment.
Member Terry?
Question about the deck and patio. Will those be replaced in the same form and location as they are now? And could you submit the Board of Health approval for our records?
Yes.
Member Gallo?
No further comment.
Member Jackson?
Is there any impact on any trees with this project? I have no further comments. Mr. Ottenheimer, go
Yes.
for it.
Thank you. Sorry to confuse you, Rob. I forgot I need to wait for all the comments before responding. So Commissioner Viteri, yes, we can get the Board of Health approval for the record. And let me go back to my presentation and I'll answer both your question and Commissioner Jackson's. So I stopped my presentation in the interest of time, but this is what Commissioner Viteri was referring to. In order to make the construction happen, the deck is going to stay in place. These stairs will have to be temporarily removed. And then once the septic system is constructed, these will be reinstalled. So there's no anticipated alteration in that regard. To Commissioner Jackson's question, there are 2 trees right here which are located where the septic system is, and those will be removed as part of this project.
But not mitigated for?
We have not proposed that, obviously not opposed to it. So if you want to make that approval of condition, that's a condition of approval, that's perfectly fine, or we could continue it and then propose it. So I apologize, we did not propose it in advance.
I'm okay with making it a condition if others are.
Works for me.
Okay. Okay. Then if we're set to go, Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public hearing for NOI 0283040 at 403 Western Avenue.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Hello, Member Cook?
Yes.
Member Sergeant?
Yes.
Member Terry?
Yes.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes, Commissioner Jackson moves to approve NOI 0283040 at 403 Western Avenue on the conditions that the deck and patio are replaced in kind. The Board of Health approval be submitted to Conservation Commission, and the trees to be removed are replaced.
Commissioner Cook, seconds?
No problem, Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Terry.
Yes.
Member Bella.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate your diligence to environmental protection here in Gloucester. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, we have a notice of intent 028. OTP number yet, Chuck?
Yep, 3041, Rob.
Number 041 for 4 to 7 Wall Street. Christopher McCarthy representing for construction of a duplex utilities, short connection and buffer zone of water and vegetated wetlands. McCarthy
Seeing Chris Carthy here, slower.
I believe Chris is on the call too. He should be there somewhere.
number.
I know he had planned a presentation.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like he listed his daughter at the start. You unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
You can hear me, Chuck?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. Chris McCarthy, 166 Bray Street in Gloucester. Regarding 5 to 7 Laurel Street, it was a piece of land that was in family, Bray family for over 175 years. Recently, I was able to clear the title and purchase the land over there and on Essex Ave. When I purchased the land on Laurel Street, it consisted of 3 20,000 square foot lots. And what I've done is combine them into one and deed some land off to one of the neighbors. The neighbor at number 5 Laurel Street deeded off some additional land. What I plan on doing is my wife and I would plan on doing is deeding this, giving this land to our 2 daughters to build a duplex and to start a family. We tried to make the structures as only 20 feet deep, long, but the foundations being 20 feet deep, tight to the front yard setback of 30 feet from Laurel Street. The sewer part of this project, this lot goes all the way over to Essex Ave. Part of the project was to bring the sewer to the rear part of the structures. The house at number 5 Laurel Street has a failed septic system and is presently on a tight tank. And part of what I'm going to do is hook him into the municipal sewer system. I'd gotten the okay from the DPW, Mike Hale, to do that. I have Thor to answer any technical questions as well. I think might have one of my daughters might speak as well. I'm not quite sure. Thank you.
Okay. I'll open up for public comment. Does anybody in the public wish to speak for or against the project at 5 to 7 Laurel Street? If so, you may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of the screen or hitting *9 on the phone or handle.
I think, yes, I think Thor was going to speak.
Thor, you have anything to add?
I don't want to belabor anything here, but just a few points that Chris missed. And for the record, Thor Akerley, professional wetland scientist with Williamson's Barrages, 189 North Main Street, Middleton, Mass. I think efforts were made by Chris and his family, again, to limit the depth of those dwellings, to stay away from the wetlands in the rear of the property as best as he could while maintaining zoning setbacks. Another key point here is that he's providing 2-to-1 mitigation in the rear of the dwelling, rear of the proposed dwelling, for the footprints of the dwelling itself, and only 8 total trees greater than 6 inches diameter breast height are proposed to be removed within the dwelling footprint or within the project in total. And he's proposing 18 new tree plantings on the property, including 5 and 7 Laurel Street. And of course, pervious driveway, pervious walkways, pervious patios, all modestly sized to accommodate a typical duplex dwelling. So I think the applicant has done a nice job, at least doing their best to comply with the regulations and making a design that fits the site reasonably. Thank you.
Roll call comments.
We still have the public comment. So we do have 9 attendees. There's 2 hands up. What's up? Sorry. First is Jackie McCarthy.
Hello. Can you hear me?
You're very soft. If you could do your name and address for the record, please.
Yes. Jacqueline McCarthy, 166 Bray Street, Gloucester. And I would like to speak for this proposal. My sister and I were generously gifted this land from our parents, and it's a great opportunity for us to be homeowners in Gloucester. We hope to raise our families here where we grew up. We share an appreciation for nature, my sister and I, and we understand the great importance of preserving it. We are dedicated to maintaining delicate natural resources around us, and we hope to share it with our neighbors and enjoy it for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Emily.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. My name is Emily Oliver. I live at 10 Laurel Street. We're not necessarily for or opposed to this project, but our concern is about 3 proposed new structures going up surrounding the wetlands, with 2 structures that were proposed for 318 and 320 Essex Ave, and then the one on Laurel Street, which would obviously be a duplex. Especially with the Laurel Street structure sitting right next to a swamp that potentially houses yellow spotted salamanders. We're excited for our neighbor at number 5 to have a sewer connection, but we just have kind of a question if the pipe is going through the swamp wetlands, if that area will be filled in, or how that will be handled. Thank you to the commission for taking your time, and Mr. McCarthy for your presentation.
Thank you. Noah, do you want to respond to that? Noah, do you want to respond to that?
Sure. Yep. So when I delineated the wetlands, I had originally flagged everything associated with 318 and 320 as well, and also walked the backside of the wetland, which starts to go up that steep slope towards the city of Gloucester land. In my opinion, the nature of these wetlands, they act as collection points for runoff from that hillside. So really water tends to, for the most part, cascade down fairly rocky areas along Laurel Street and somewhat collects in the wetlands behind here, but then clearly is constantly moving and eventually exits the box culvert under Essex Avenue. So when I was out there, I didn't observe any areas where water can pond for long enough that's not moving, that could house salamander eggs. It's certainly not impossible, but it's just not good habitat for salamanders You know, and they also there are some vernal pools up over the other side of the hill here, I believe, that were certified. But this particular site just doesn't appear to be very, you know, provide much habitat for them. And, you know, we certainly didn't see any when we were out there.
All right. Want to do commissioner roll call comments, Chuck?
Yep. Member Cook?
No, I don't have any additional comments.
Member Sargent?
Maybe I'm confused, but it looked like some of the mitigation for 7 was on number 5, and I'm wondering how that works. And there should be a 2-year monitoring for the mortality and mitigation plantings, and all water must be adequately treated before being discharged.
Member Terry?
I would also like to see some mitigation being done on the number 5 parcel. I would also like to see the existing septic components on number 5 to be removed and decommissioned, and then for the sewer line to be restored and reseeded with a conservation seed mix.
Go.
Think further to add at this time.
Next.
No further comments. Does the applicant have any response to any of those comments?
Yes. Some of the tree mitigation is also on number 5 as well. Some in the form of larger trees and screening, and over towards the Essex Ave portion, putting some trees as mitigation there as well. If the commission would like a few more trees, I could do those directly in back of number 5 as part of 2 or 3 or 4 more trees as part of the stipulation. I can do that.
Mr. Sargent, are you happy with with the amount of mitigation on number 7?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, he's doing mitigation on a separate lot. You know, is that problematic?
Is there written permission from that property owner, sir?
I will have written permission to put those there, and that he will be able to take care of those. Yes.
Okay, if we could have a copy of that, that would be appreciated.
No, I can do that as well. No problem.
Okay. Is there anything else that needed responding to? You wanted more mitigation on number 5, Peter. And what was you said something about number 7 with the conservation mix and?
Just for both parcels, really, for wherever the sewer line is going to be dug and reseeded.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. Then I think we're ready to move on. Commissioner Jackson moves to, Chuck, did you have any comments?
Nothing additional. No.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public hearing for NOI 0283041 at 5 to 7 Laurel Street.
Commissioner Cook, seconds.
All Member Cook?
Yes.
Member Sargent?
Yes.
Member Terry?
Yes.
Member Bella?
Yes.
Member Jackson?
Yes. Commissioner Jackson moves to approve NOI 0283041 at 5 to 7 Laurel Street with the previously discussed conditions, including mitigation for on both number 7 and number 5, with increased mitigation on number 5. 2-year monitoring, treat any dewatering, and where the excavation is done for the sewer line should be replanted with a conservation mix on both properties. And the written permission from number 5 for the work on his property will be submitted to the agent.
Commissioner Cook, seconds.
Member Cook?
Yes.
Member Sargent?
Yes.
Member Terry?
Yes.
Member Bella?
Yeah.
And Member Jackson?
Yes. Hallelujah.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
commissioners.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you all.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Okay, did Chuck, did anybody ever show up for 20 Hart Street, Mr. Dieso?
Let's see. Not that I can see. There's a phone number and then a phone listed.
I know most of those other names. It's not here.
Yeah.
All right, should we just continue into March 5th?
Yep.
All right, Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI RDA 1820 at 20 Hart Street to the Conservation Commission meeting of March 5th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Terry.
Yes.
Member Bella.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes, and can you talk with him again and say, we need to see him?
Yeah. I know he wants to get this over with too. Yeah, he's come by the office a couple times. I don't know what's going on.
All right, we want to move on to this certificate of compliance.
Yep. Did you get your questions answered, Chuck, on this?
I did.
Road?
I did. I put those in the folder for you guys to look at. I guess the only remaining question I had, there was 2 additional trees that were removed during the construction, and they were not mitigated for. So I didn't know, if the commission wanted to see additional trees planted or if they felt fine with.
What did you think of the lot? Do you think there's sufficient vegetative cover?
It looked good. Everything looked. I mean, it was completely covered in snow and ice at the time we were there. So
you can't tell.
Yeah. But some of the photos from the report that they sent look very good as far as the wet area on the side of the house there, and it is heavily wooded around there, but
I hate to set a precedent of not mitigating for additional trees to be removed.
That's why we're,
What, Rob?
no, that's why we're here, to make adjustments as we see appropriate. If appropriate, we can do.
It certainly is heavily wooded out there. How do other people feel?
I'm okay with more trees.
What's up, Peter?
I'm okay with more trees, especially if they're cut, they were moved during sort of the performance of the work and not as part of the original proposal.
Good with that.
Okay. Yeah, let's have them put in more trees.
Okay.
Okay.
And how many trees? Two to 1 for 2, or?
I don't know. What do we do on this? It's 2 to 1 in the riverfront. I think we usually do 1 to 1 outside the riverfront, do we?
I think that
Usually 2 to 1 everywhere, but
I don't care.
Yeah, tell him to put 2 trees in, Chuck.
okay.
Okay.
So I guess if they agree to putting in 2 more trees, is the commission okay to approve?
I think unless they're trying to sell the house or something, I think I'd like to see the trees planted and assume they will take care of them.
Okay.
And before the compliance is issued, I have no problem with issuing it. I just want to make sure those trees are in the ground.
Sure. So,
and can they be native trees?
Yes. Yes, they can.
all right.
All right.
Message.
All right, where are we here? We gotta.
Violations. Anything new?
So whistle stop sounds like it's on a bit of a hold. I guess the survey crew was locating all the wetland flags, but then with all the snow and ice now on top of those flags, it's making that a little difficult. So I'm not sure when things will thaw enough for them to actually be able to see the flags again to finish the digitization of that.
All right. So they'll come in sometime.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we just gotta wait for the weather to get a little bit messy.
Yeah.
For Stanwood?
So I guess, it's up to the commission on how everyone feels on that. That there's two separate issues, one at 4 Stanwood, one at 6 Stanwood. 4 Stanwood, essentially they just hadn't completed the work. And so commission was allowing that to continue under an enforcement order. But now with the Permit Extension Act, that permit is back active again. So they were just looking to have that enforcement order for that one removed. The enforcement order for 6 Stanwood, which is the issue with the sand and the marsh restoration, that would still remain in place.
I don't have any problem with that. I don't like to close it out, but it's moot with the enforcement, with the extension.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Yep.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson moves to close the enforcement order due to the passing of the Permit Extension Act on for EO 2406 at 4 Stanwood Point.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Terry.
Yes.
Member Gullah.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes.
All right.
Is there anything else we need to discuss before I move to adjourn?
Well, we approved some things, so when are they gonna be ready to be signed, Chuck? We might have to go in there and sign papers now.
Yeah, I will. We'll get the forms in the folder tomorrow. So
Okay, so do you need signatures, Chuck?
we will for this to be approved. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Stat the
Chuck,
list.
you mentioned that DPA thing earlier. Does that get the benefit of the Permit Extension Act?
No, that one expired quite a while ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but as I said, we do have a new one in progress, and it should be, well, it wasn't submitted today, so it won't be on next agenda, but near future, next 2 or 3 meetings, I'm sure it'll pop up. So.
All right.
And we still on for next Monday for the training class, Have you heard anything?
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay,
All right.
move to adjourn.
I second.
Roll call, Member Coach.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Terry.
Yes.
Member Gullah.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes.